3, roll call. Executive Assistant Berg.
President Erickson.
Here.
Vice President Ludlow. Here. Trustee Tompkins. Here. Treasurer Lax.
Here.
Club Allocation Chair Duke. Here. Public Relations Representative Weekly. Here. Senator Demerit. Here. Senator Olson.
Here.
Senator Stokes.
Here.
Senator Berry.
Here.
Senator Gorman.
Here.
Senator Carey.
Here.
Senator Shake.
Here.
Senator Ricker. Here. Senator Isete.
Here.
Senator Weir.
Here.
Senator Andrews.
Here.
Senator Steenberg.
Here.
Dean Terhart. Here. Advisor Kleiss.
Here. Thank you very much. Moving on to letter C, Executive Assistant Captain.
President Mitchell. Here. Vice President Cummings. Here. Chairman Alpers. Here. Chairman Klein. Here. Chairman Poole. Here. Senator Lindstrom.
Unexcused.
Senator Peterson. Here. Senator Belmonte.
Present.
Senator Fultz.
Here.
Senator Ringo.
Here.
Senator Eichten.
Here.
Senator Madsen.
Here.
Senator Stanton.
Here.
Senator Hedlund.
Here.
Senator Ridloff.
Here.
Senator Turner.
Here.
Senator Washington. Here. Alright, check out that.
Thank you very much. Moving on to letter D, opening reflection, Senator Olson.
Hello everyone, thank you for making it. My name is Miranda Olson, if you don't know me. But, I think it was whenever our last joint meeting was, I thought that I had to do the opening reflection for that. So this has been prepared for like months because I emailed it to them then because I thought it was due that. So, although this isn't like too up and giddy, it's more, it's a good video I saw on my Facebook feed, and it really just made me think, and I think that with a lot of us being seniors around this table and moving forward, it'll kind of make you think about who you want to be when you graduate and like moving on to like even scarier like parents, but just think about these things. And it's a good one, and I'm sorry for hurting anyone's feelings, but it's pretty good. Yeah, just did play.
Dear Daddy, I just wanted to thank you for looking after me so well, even though I'm not yet born. I know you already try harder than Superman. You might even let Mommy eat sushi. But I need to ask you a favor. Warning. It's about boys. Because, you see, I will be born a girl, which means that by the time I'm 14, the boys in my class will have called me a whore, a bitch, a cunt, and many other things. It's just for fun, of course. Something boys do. So you won't worry. And I understand that. Perhaps you did the same when you were young, trying to impress some of the other boys. I'm sure you didn't mean anything by it. Still, some of the people won't get the joke. And funnily enough, it isn't any of the girls. It's some of the boys. So by the time I turn 16, a couple of the boys will have snuck their hands down my pants while I'm so drunk I can't even stand straight. And although I say no, they just laugh. It's funny, right? If you saw me, Daddy, you would be so ashamed, because I'm wasted. No wonder I'm raped when I'm 21. 21 and on my way home in a taxi driven by the son of a guy you went swimming with every Wednesday. The guy who always told insulting jokes, but they were of course only jokes, so you laughed. Had you known that his son would end up raping me, you would have told him to get a grip. But how could you know? He was just a boy, telling weird jokes, and in any case it wasn't your business. You were just being nice. But his son, raised on these jokes, becomes my business. Then finally, I meet Mr. Perfect, and you're so happy for me, Daddy, because he really adores me. And he's smart, with a great job, and all through the winter he goes cross-country skiing 3 times a week, just like you. But one day he stops being Mr. Perfect, and I don't know why. Wait, am I overreacting? One thing I do know, I'm not the victim type. I'm raised to be a strong and independent woman. But one night it's just all too much for him, with work and the in-laws and the wedding coming up. So he calls me a whore, just like you called a girl in middle school a whore once. Then another day, he hits me. I mean, I'm way out of line. I can really be a bitch sometimes. But we're still the world's greatest couple, and I'm so confused because I love him and I hate him, and I'm not sure if I really did do something wrong. And then one day he almost kills me. It all goes black. Even though I have a PhD, a fantastic job, I'm loved by my friends and family, I'm well brought up, and nobody saw this coming. Dear Daddy, this is the favor I want to ask. One thing always leads to another. So please stop it before it gets the chance to begin. Don't let my brothers call girls whores, because they're not. And one day some little boy might think it's true. Don't accept insulting jokes from weird guys by the pool, or even friends. Because behind every joke there is always some truth. Dear Daddy, I know you will protect me from lions, tigers, guns, cars, and even sushi without even thinking about the danger to your own life. But dear Daddy, I will be born a girl. Please do everything you can so that that won't stay the greatest danger of all.
So I know that's kind of a hard video, but it just really puts into perspective when you hear something stand up for what you think is right. There's a quote I like, and it's, "The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion." But to end this on a happier note, because I figured if I showed that video and just sat down, everyone would kind of get a little more glum. Part of Lent was that I gave up boys, but the only thing that benefited was the parts that weren't broken. So another thing that I did with Lent is I started writing like positive affirmations to people every day. So I wrote you all one. If I forgot you, I owe you coffee, but I'm almost positive that I got everyone. So Benny's pass it to the right, and guys pass it to the left like Beyonce. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to letter E, approval of the minutes. Motion to approve. Second. A motion by Treasurer Lax and a second by Senator Shea. Are there any corrections to the minutes of our last joint meeting? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes of our last joint meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes stand approved. Moving on to letter F, approval of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Club Allocation Chair Hugh and a second by President Mitchell. Are there any corrections to today's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to Advisor Chair Hart.
Under Roman numeral 3, board report, you can strike letter C.
Without objection, the chair will accept. Are there any other corrections to today's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of approving today's agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The agenda stands approved. Moving on to room number 2, guests. Letter A, Benny of the Week. Yes.
All right, so I hope you all are doing great today. All right, so many of us know so many Bennies that do amazing things on campus, and many times these things that they do go unnoticed. This is why Club Applications Chair Hugh, Trustee Tompkins, and myself decided to pick up this initiative. The 3 of us have worked diligently over the past few weeks to find and award these Bennies. even if it means awarding one penny at a time. These bennies are nominated by a CSB SJU faculty or staff that notices their hard work and resilience. On that note, I would like to introduce our first ever Benny of the Week. She is a sophomore, a double major in gender studies and Hispanic studies. She loves to take naps in the sun and learning new languages. Our first Benny of the Week works every day to fully live out the Benedictine values of truthful living, listening, and justice. She hopes that living these values every day will help her recognize ways where she could be a better Benny, encourage others to be the best Benny they can be, and create a more inclusive and wide-reaching community. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Lucy Bloom. If you like anything, if you want to say anything, you can.
I just want to say thank you so much. I'm so honored and it's really fun to be here. So thank you.
Moving on to letter B, Dan Tracy.
Hello, Senate, distinguished Senate. Love these meetings. I said this last time, I'm so professional you guys are too. All right, so I'm Dan Tracy. I serve as a campus missionary over at St. John's through the Focus Organization, Fellowship of Catholic University Students. You remember me from maybe November. I came and asked you guys for a fair chunk of money for transportation for the SEET conference. It was a 5-day conference down in San Antonio, Texas. 13,000 people that attended the conference, over 12,000 of which are college students, and we brought a group of, I always get the numbers mixed up, I think 26 Johnnies, 29 Bennies, and then there were also 4 monks and a couple of representatives from the School of Theology. So we were a group of 63 from CSB SJU at this conference. And so I just want to thank you for the donate for the money and just share a few highlights from January to now since the SEET conference. So you guys donated, the St. Ben Senate donated $3,600 and the St. John's Senate $1,000. On a financial level, we were in the black, so that's awesome. So many campuses that I know where fellow missionaries serve usually lose money on SEEK, and we were fortunate enough to come out positive. And thank you for your efforts in that. Just a few highlights. I shared with Elizabeth, I emailed her today if any senators were interested. I have a 2-page document of just things that students shared, just quotes from different students, different experiences that they had, some really powerful stuff. I was pretty much moved to tears when people were sharing things on the bus, and it was funny. We got up on the bus about 3 hours into this 26-hour trek back to Collegeville, and we said, all right, does anyone want to share their experience? And like 7 people raised their hand on the bus, so 50 plus. And so I was like, all right, this is going to have 20 minutes. And so after those 7 people shared, just people kept on giving up. So it was almost 3 hours that we were hearing just the way that God was working on this trip. It was really powerful for me and many on the bus to hear that. So since that time, just in terms of on-campus, 4 Johnnies that went are now in one-on-one mentorship, either with a missionary or with an older student leader. We have 2 students, 1 Benny and 1 Johnny, that will be serving what's called the Focus Summer Project, which is an 8-week immersion in Colorado, where they get training and evangelization and all this stuff. So really excited that we have 2 students doing that. We have a Johnny who's going on a mission trip to Honduras. I don't know much about St. Ben's campus ministry, but I was told that there are 8 women that are leading Bible studies from the group that went on that trip as well through St. Ben's campus ministry. We have 1 Johnny who will be serving as a Focus missionary in fall of 2018 that went on the trip. And we've just been, my missionary teammate and I have just been trying to manage all the fruitfulness from this great conference. And so we're just very grateful for your generous donations. And just want to say thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, any questions?
For our guest today? Vice coming in.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. How can you just explain fiscally you guys came out positive on the event?
Yes, so we received the $4,600 from the combined Senate pool, and then $4,000 from the Knights of Columbus at St. John's, and then various donors. I think the personal donations were somewhere around $3,000 to $4,000, just us making individual asks, and then our student fundraising efforts. Our students agreed to fundraise for their registration fee, and any money that they fundraise on top of that, they agreed that that would go to transportation as well. And I think that might have been another $2,000 as well.
So is that just moving on into next year, or?
So the Z conference itself is every 2 years. There's a leadership conference that we put on next January that's in Chicago. So hopefully, I'm not sure what the financial need for that event is. Hopefully less because we're not traveling to Texas. We're traveling just a couple hours away to Chicago. Yeah. So was there? Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was so much.
Yeah.
Vice President Lillo?
I just wanted to thank you again. We really appreciate hearing the impact that our funding had on you and that experience. That doesn't happen often. We really appreciate it, so we know where that goes and what happens with it. So thanks for coming.
Sure.
Okay. Are there any other questions for our guests? Seeing none, thank you so much for your time. Moving on to letter C, Lacey Solheim.
Hi, everyone. I think I was asked here to just kind of give a brief introduction of myself. I think you said my name's been thrown out a few times in Senate meetings. So I'm Lacey Solheim. I'm the Associate Director of Programming and Orientation in the SELV office. So I think a few of you are familiar faces, a few of you are not. I get to work with Tommy and Zelda pretty closely. We meet every week, so if you have any questions about student activities, they're your go-to people. Is there any, I don't know what you want to know about me, but I'm originally from this area. I grew up just south of here in Spicer, Minnesota, and went to school at UMD and got my master's in counseling and student development at Kansas State. And while I was there, I did an internship. I'm always an advocate for internships because mine have ended up going and turning into jobs. And I ended up being an intern and finding my first job out in Billings, Montana at Montana State University Billings. And there I worked with student organizations, student activities. I also helped out with the events office and orientation and some major university activities and stuff like that. I live in St. Cloud now and have a 3-legged cat named Poppy and a 1-eyed hedgehog named Lucy. So I have a kind of a weird pets find me, I guess. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I don't know if there's any questions that anyone has or
Chairman Poole?
Thanks for coming. My one question is, do you have any changes or updates that you see happening in the next year or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I bring a pretty interesting perspective to the university because this is the first private institution that I've worked at. Most of the places I've been have been public institutions, so I bring in a different perspective that way. I've also worked with several different formats of orientation, some that are similar to the ones we do here and ones that are totally different. So I think that there's some things that can be integrated into that. I think that I've also been able to just kind of bring a fresh perspective to the office and to the Joint Events Council and a few other areas that I've worked with. So I can see changes on the horizon. I don't know exactly what those will be, but I think that I bring a unique perspective to the campus.
Thank you. What's your time?
Are there any other questions for our guests? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time.
Great.
Appreciate it. Moving on to letter D, the Joint Events Council.
This is a really long walk.
Don't know how to fix it.
Okay. So hi everyone. We spoke to you last semester, but my name's Haley Irma. I'm the St. Ben's co-chair of Joint Events Council.
I'm John Wilbus, and I'm the St. John's co-chair of the Joint Events Council.
So we're just going to give you a little update, kind of retracing from what we talked about last semester to this semester, and then what we have going on for the rest of the school year. So, as you can see, So just kind of what's going on right now, so you're kind of familiar with what we're doing. We have, I guess, done the application process and everyone has been notified of their positions for next year. So next year, speaking up here will be Ramon Angeles and Ashley Wilson. They'll be the co-chairs. And then also coming up at the end of March, we're sending a team down to NACA, which is the Campus Activities Summit. Or I guess, I don't know. It's kind of a trip where you go and in the mornings you do informational sessions where you learn about what other schools are doing and new ideas that you can bring back to campus. And then you also watch showcases of performers that you can bring back to campus if you please. So it's usually where we get all of our Welcome Fest performers or the first 6 week of school. So that's always a huge success for us and that's happening in March. And then this year will be the first year since John and I have been here actually, we're going to be programming on Case Day. Right now we have planned a themed bingo of some kind. We think it'll just be an alternative activity to everything else going on and it'll be something positive for students to choose to do.
Yep, and the plan is, working kind of in coordination with other departments, residential life especially, they're trying to put some stuff on as well, so we're going to try to stagger everything going on so that there's consistently stuff going on throughout that day.
And then we've also been working on Pines, which one release has already been announced. We'll kind of talk more about that later in the presentation though. And then we're preparing for next year. Like I said, we have our new execs, and there are some execs that have never been execs before. So we're doing Thursday night programming twice for the rest of the semester, and those are kind of mini events that are designed by our new upcoming execs so they can kind of practice. Is it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow is the first one. It's called Mario Kart Madness. You can just come play for fun or compete in a tournament for a quick trip gift card in Fireside. So that one would be really fun.
So a couple of events that we've had since coming back from, just to start this new semester. Grocery bingo, that was a huge hit. That was one of the things that our new advisor, Lacey Solheim, brought with her. Something we had never heard of before, and this campus really enjoys bingo, but we thought that would be a great idea to try. I personally love shopping for it. You don't know how many looks you get when you have 3 grocery carts going around, you're just grabbing a ton of stuff off the shelf, so that was pretty fun. But yeah, 174 attendees and 44% of those were seniors, which is, unbelievable numbers for us. We're typically pretty happy if we can get out 15, 20% that are seniors. So 44 was awesome. Then we had the middle school dance. We had 219 attendees, and then we had that 47 percentile with Johnny. So that was something good too. Always striving for that 50-50 mark. Something that we understand is difficult to obtain. You'll see later we're still kind of holding the average of what we've been over the past couple of years, but always trying to think of ways that we can really appeal to that St. John's campus.
On to Pines. So there's going to be 2 portions of Pines. You guys get a little sneak peek. There'll be a daytime portion and then the concert at night, which has already been announced. It's Echo Smith. Yay! So excited. Doors open at 7:30 for that. It should start around 8. But daytime will be at St. John's. Hopefully outside if everything's good on the Tundra, and then a couple things will be inside in Sexton or Guildhall. From noon to 4, there'll be all kinds of stuff. There's active stuff like bubble soccer. Archery tag is kind of like laser tag, but it's with bow and arrows with foam tips. So a little different, foam tips, emphasis. There will also be a graffiti contest on big pieces of plywood. People can sign up in teams or just show up and start painting. Campus DJs, Comedy Sports is an improv comedy group that's been on campus before, so you might remember them. And then there's also going to be a Sexton special, so kind of like the specials in McGlynn's, just something unique going on during Sexton where people will pay a punch, and then JC is kind of subsidizing like a little bit something extra, whether it be like bacon on a burger. We're still working on what it is, but it'll be something kind of fun for the day.
All right, so just to go over kind of the numbers, on the left side you'll see what we presented to you in the fall, looking at our data surrounding kind of the numbers with the Benny Johnny split. And you'll see that it actually has grown a little bit further apart than the Welcome Fest had right away. Just kind of initial thoughts of where that is. unfortunately, the Johnnies that might come in right away and say, yes, I'm going to get involved with stuff, and I'll be one Johnny to admit that I start to get a little bit lazier as the year goes on. So still holding at that 65-35 split, something that we want to get down in between that 60 and 40. So constantly kind of trying to think of different events with that. And we think with all these new execs that are going to be coming in, a lot of ideas that are coming in as well. So hopefully that's going to be something that parlays really well into next year. Part of that as well, I think, is without having Lacey on board until December. I mean, a lot of the stuff we were trying to rely on, okay, we know this is tried and true, we know this event works, we want something that, we want to make sure that we have events that will be successful, and we didn't have a ton of time to focus on those kind of bigger initiatives that we want within the JEC. So moving on to the next one. This is the class distribution. Typically, in Welcome Fest right away, first year students that are on board dominate the numbers of what's going on. And so that's kind of come back down, but we've still seen a significant amount of first years that are coming to everything that's going on, which is a good thing. That's absolutely what we want. We want people to stay engaged with things, so we're hoping that that continues and we start to see all the classes kind of come up with that in the years to come.
So these 4 main bullet points were the goals that we presented to you the last time we were here, and we just kind of wanted to touch on them and how we've been doing with those. So smooth transition to a new advisor was something that we were really excited for, but a little bit nervous, but it has been a huge success. We're so excited to have Lacey aboard and love every minute of it. Also creating a lasting impression on first years, like John said, we have had the highest percentage of first year attendees in the past 6 years. So it's something that we're really proud of, and we hope to maintain that engagement for the rest of their time here. Enhancing relationships with campus clubs and organizations through co-sponsorships. We've had ROTC, MDI, BSA, libraries, a whole bunch of people reach out for those co-sponsorships, looking for, whether they're just looking for assistance in planning, using us as a resource, or actually doing that co-sponsorship. So we think that's a huge success. But something else we're really excited about is our new partnerships with fine arts programming. We did one last semester, and then we just had one with Las Cafeteras. Basically, we buy a whole bunch of tickets for their performances and give them out to students for free, and encourage them to just see what fine arts programming has to offer, because sometimes students think, oh, I don't want to pay for this or whatever, but they're actually really great shows. And we've had a lot of success with that. We gave out just under 200 tickets for Las Cafeterias, so it was a huge success, and we're really excited about doing that again next year. And then more suggestions and inputs from the student body. John put together an off-campus event survey, so maybe I'll let him explain that.
Yeah, basically, kind of as everyone knows, there are many different events that we have throughout the year that take students off campus to different places. And the 2 biggest hurdles when trying to figure out what we want to do with that are, okay, how many students are going to be interested in this? At what price point are they going to be willing to pay? So I guess there's actually 3 things. Because then the other thing is, how much are we willing to spend on transportation to get all the students there? Kind of with busing, you run up to a 52 limit with your cap, and then if you're going to get a second bus, well, then you might as well get 104 tickets because you're looking to do that. So basically, I just worked out something that said, okay, these are some of the stuff we've done in the past, like what have you taken part in? And then it'd say, okay, now in the future, what are some events that you would like to see JC program off campus? And then after that, it would direct the students to kind of a form where it would say, okay, how much would you be willing to pay to go to event X? And then they would say, I'd be willing to pay almost $20 to do this. Just so we can get an idea of how many students are willing to pay for things, especially when we're looking at wild games, something like that. I mean, we had over 300 applications to get into the wild game lottery, I think, in like a couple hours. It was unbelievable. And that's something where, while we don't want to raise the price drastically, if we're able to raise that price a little bit, get a second bus, we're going to be able to provide for more students because we're just not able to subsidize $50 of a $70 ticket for 100 people. That's just not financially, it doesn't make sense. So we had a lot of good feedback on that, and we're looking forward to kind of using that for next year to just kind of be able to offer that to more students so we don't have to say no to as many people.
That's kind of all we have for you, though. But does anyone have any questions?
Are there any questions for our guests today? Vice President Ludlow?
I have 2 questions. So I don't know if it was this year or the first year or even last year, but you kind of changed the structure for how JEC was run. How's that going, and do you know if you're going to keep that in the
future? Is that how it's set up for that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been going really well. I think what we kind of realized before was that we had a lot of overlap in what our committees were doing. And sometimes we would struggle to kind of, okay, what was every committee's identity and what was going on? So when we kind of consolidated those, what we've been able to do is have committees with more members within them. So you don't have committees that, okay, this person has a track meet, this one has a choir concert, blah, 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 and only 5 people can staff an event. So that's really helped from a staffing perspective. Execs have really enjoyed it too because there's just a lot of more help within their committee. They're able to bring in more members to kind of show around the office, kind of see what's going on, that sort of thing. From our perspective, it's nice. It works out that we just have 5 now committees with members. We have more executives that are able to just work in the office, kind of be working on bigger picture initiatives. Tori Ottinger and Ramon Angeles are the traditions co-chairs, and they used to have members in the past, but now they're kind of focusing on the bigger things going on, especially Pines. They've had a lot of work within that too, so it's been nice.
Thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
That's my question.
Are there any other questions for our guests today? Seeing none. Thank you both so much for your time. Moving on to letter E, the record.
So we have some handouts for about every other person. There's not a lot of them. Thanks.
You know you like each other, so you can share it.
Share with your counterpart.
So first of all, thanks for having us. I'm Megan Flynn. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Record, and Hope is my managing editor. And so we're pretty much here. We kind of have the beginnings of an idea that we got, that we were kind of inspired by at our trip to ACP, which is a college newspaper convention we go to every year. So we did that in February, and a lot of what some of our speakers were talking about is that some school newspapers have come up with kind of an agreement with their administrations or whoever is kind of has input with the student newspaper as far as like what we can say and what we can't say and how much freedom we have as a private school newspaper, like we're not an independent newspaper. And so we kind of started thinking about that and have been doing a little bit of research, and we just thought we would kind of fill you in on where we've got with that so far.
Yeah, so really why we're here is just to kind of keep you up to date with what we're doing, because we don't want that to be a surprise to you, especially since you're the ones who give us all of our money. So again, thank you for that. So kind of to reiterate what Megan said, when we went to ACP, the entire conference was around freedom of speech, like not censoring like students and what's happening like on campus and everything. But also one of the things that prompted this idea was back in the fall we had a newspaper theft, and all of the student newspapers at St. Ben's were stolen. So that means over $500 that the student senates gave to us was essentially thrown away, which we do not think is okay. And in moving forward, we want to, ask that the Senate, liaison with the Record to kind of help us create this contract so that we can work in tandem with administration, because I think our administration are champions of the Record. They support us every which way, but to have an agreement with them that's written to kind of help us move forward in the Freedom of Speech Act.
Yeah, because kind of the problem that we ran into with that situation, and then years and years in the past, there have been others, but that it's kind of hard to know what to do in a situation like that. Like there's not necessarily like a specific policy or course of action. So we kind of thought that if we did a little bit of this research and kind of came up with our own agreement, that would kind of help provide that. If there were to be issues in the future, then everyone would kind of know, okay, we're all on the same page, here's the next course of action.
And like I said, the administration, they're
very supportive.
They're very supportive of the Record, and so it's just kind of like we have this unsaid agreement with them right now. So we would just kind of like to have it in writing between us and the administration, so that in moving forward, we don't have these issues.
And it's easy for everyone to know what to do if we do. And so essentially, we love to hear kind of your questions. We're in the very beginning stages of kind of researching how this kind of thing would work. So we'll field as many of your questions as possible, and then we'll take the rest as kind of suggestions to do some more research and find out what else would go into something like this.
Yeah, we're working with Emily Topp, who focuses on freedom of speech, and then we're also partnering with some student groups nationally who focus on student press and those sorts of things, and they've been helping us come up with contract ideas as well. So.
Are there any questions for our guests today? Chairman Glenn?
Thank you for coming. Do other schools in the MIAC have agreements like this too, or is this just kind of a unique thing for St. John's if you're trying to start?
There are examples of like a contract like this at other MIAC schools. There have been examples of newspaper thefts at other MIAC schools though. There are examples of where the policies at schools like Hamlin and I think it was McAllister, where they think that the policies that the school have in place hinder their freedom of speech when it comes to the newspaper, so kind of a little bit of an opposite thing, but they don't have like a specific agreement with their student newspaper, or at least none that we can find.
And part of the issue we run into too is that there's a lot of guidance on this kind of thing as far as public schools, and then obviously private schools, the rules are totally different, so there's still a lot of research that we have to do, but.
Alright, thank you for it.
Senator Tate?
Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I was just wondering if you could explain the situation prompted that.
What prompted the theft? Yeah, that's a great question. So back in the fall, Megan and I actually wrote a story on a sexual assault that happened.
Is it Johnny who felt that he'd been suspended wrongfully, so then was suing the school over that suspension? And I think there was a student that felt uncomfortable with the fact that we were writing a story about this sexual assault situation at all.
Because the sexual assault, the student was still on campus, even though this was completely anonymous. But the former Johnny, his name was public. This news was, regional. The Star Trib did an article. I'm pretty positive that the St. Louis Times did an article. So it was a very cut and dry, just up to date for the student population here to know what was happening. And the student who threw away the newspapers didn't agree that we were having this article published and felt that that's why she wanted to throw them away.
Senator Ringo?
No questions, but I think what you're doing is great and it's an awesome idea, and I'd love to be of any assistance possible.
Thanks.
Bring my family.
Treasurer Lax?
Hi, I just am wondering, maybe I misunderstood your presentation. I'm just wondering what the goal of your initiative will be, if it will allow you to pursue action or will allow you to exercise your right to free speech. I'm just wondering what the goal of this contract would be.
Sure. So kind of, we just noticed that it's been kind of difficult to, a lot of these situations that were brought up at ACB that other newspapers said they had problems with, or situations that come up, we've kind of been like, yeah, I don't know how we would handle that or how the school would handle that. So I think it was kind of, we saw like a little bit of a hole in like where, what specific things would happen were a situation like ours happen again, or a situation like other schools. So we figured we'd just kind of do what research we can to figure out what a good course of action would be for some of those situations, and then lay it out clearly.
So to be able to bridge the gap, because we reported this theft on campus, talked with administration, but a lot of it was not knowing where to go. Where do we move forward? How do we move on from this? And so I think the biggest thing is knowing what the next step is, and because there was nothing in place for what to do, I think that's like our biggest goal is to, what do we do in an instance if there's a newspaper theft or if there's censorship from administration? Like, what does that actually look like? Because right now we don't have anything.
That was helpful. Thank you. I returned my time.
Senator Paul?
Strike.
Pierre quickly.
Not necessarily a question, but more of a comment. I like that you guys are working with Emily Pop. I think that she's a really good resource.
Here,
And she's a
here.
way to get in with the administration because she really knows what she's talking about and she's a really understanding and empathetic person. So I think that that's a good move. And before you said that you were working with her, I was going to recommend that you do. But so yeah, I like to hear that. And that I return my time.
Senator Stevens? Strike. Trustee McFarland?
Strike.
Are there any other questions for our guests? Thank you both for coming in.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Moving on to letter F, the newspaper task force.
Okay, so we're officially Street Task Force. It's a joint task force that we have for our Senate. So we're here to present on the New York Times and what we're requesting for funding, but also something else that we'll explain a little bit later that's a little more complicated. So just pay attention closely because it's not a cut and dry funding situation for this. And just an update on our papers. Next year we will have the Wall Street Journal that was donated for the next year too. So keep that in mind, that'll still be on campus. Star Tribune, we will not be voting on that right now. Each Senate will vote on that next year at their first meeting because Star Trib can be started at any point. So we don't have to use our budget for that this year. We're going to start that right away in the fall so we can get that here as soon as possible. So keep those in mind. We'll most likely have Star Trib if whoever votes on that next year, but will have the Wall Street Journal as well.
Alright, so first off, we have two parts of the New York Times. We have the paper itself that you see in the racks right outside either Gretzky or in Sexton. But then there's also an app that students can log on to. Last year we had a sign-up session where there you can then get the news on their phone. And we had that part of our deal last year when we funded the New York Times. And basically that just allows students to kind of pick and select what kind of news they want. So let's say you're international relations, emphasis major, poli-sci, you could tailor it to get your international news in a sense. So it's really user-friendly that way. So when the representative from the New York Times came and presented to us, she really made that clear that it's intended for students to use in terms of this app. So we kind of had that as part of the deal. So currently there's 617 registered users between both campuses. And there's been 60,000 sessions, so basically what that means is an individual visits or is on the app for about 15 minutes, that counts as a session. So that shows that's been clearly been used a lot over this year. In total for funding, now it's about almost $7,000. The libraries funded about 2,000 of that through things like some of the grants that they have or some of their funding, because they've been very supportive and helpful in this initiative. And so basically what it comes down to is about almost $2,500 per Senate. And that is just for the app itself.
And that's what we'll be voting on today out of this budget. So the app will be July 2017 to June 2018. So we will be voting to use our money right now for something that will be July 2017 to June 2018. But there's no other way to really do it because that's where they start with the fiscal year. That's where they start their app processing, and there won't be a Senate that's meeting in June or July. So this is how we did it last year too. So this is just kind of how it has to go with how our fiscal years are set up. And then the paper. So the New York Times paper, everybody is probably updated, but a little bit ago they raised their price for the paper. And so we kind of brought down the number of copies we have. So currently we get 71 copies per day for 140 delivery days for the entire year. And that's split between both campuses. One campus gets one more than the other, but basically equal. So the usage, we have 90 to 100% pickup rate for our papers. So to be clear, we pay for the papers that are picked up. If a paper is left, then we don't pay for that. But on average, this is the numbers that we're going to use for next year because we do have 90 to 100% pickup rate, which means we'll need to pay for all those anyways. So our cost for that, the full year is going to be $9,940. And this is once again for the 71 copies per day and the 140 delivery days for the entire academic year. And then that's going to be $4,970 per Senate. So this paper tonight, we are going to vote. Basically, we're going to vote for next year's Senate for them to make this decision. And once again, this is just kind of how we have to do it because we don't have another joint meeting until September or the next month. So we can't really wait to do this or we won't have papers for the first part of the year. So we are not voting to take this money out of our budget now. We're voting for next year's Senate for them to take it out of their budget. Does that make sense? And then, yeah, that's all we have.
And just kind of some context, last year we had the same issue where there was a lot of money, both sides were kind of a little short on their discretionary funding, so we did the same thing where I think we split it down the middle. We did half was funded from this year's Senate, and then half was funded from last year's Senate. So basically it kind of acts like a line item in our budget that we just kind of allocate and know it's there. So that's just some kind of historical context. I know it still can change every year, but last year that's what we decided to do. So just kind of keep that in mind.
And Nicole Rome, who came to talk to us last year, she's our point person for New York Times. I've been in contact with her for a lot, and she told me that these numbers are really unheard of for a school our size and for a school like us. So our task force, and I know a lot of other people generally feel like this is something students use. We didn't do a survey or anything this year because our numbers show for themselves since we've have it for a year. These numbers mean more than a survey would for that. So. And that's all.
Are there any questions for our guest today? Senator Ringo?
So to clarify, the way that this motion reads on the agenda sounds like we are just telling the Senate that we support this. Is our vote a binding saying that next year's Senate will be spending this money?
Yes, so we're gonna vote, if we decide to pass this tonight, then we are voting for next year's Senate, and then right away, when we get our first bill in September, that will just be started paying from that other Senate. So we are making a decision for next year, yeah.
The wording on that one would be my issue. I struggled with how to make sure that you knew that it was different, that we weren't allocating our current money on that motion. So that's why there's two motions. The first one, you'll see with the number on it, is coming out of our budget, but that third motion, letter C, the endorsed word was supposed to like help you realize it was a little bit different. Senator Eichten?
Going back to the number of sessions, it was around 60,000. And it only counts if you're on there for 15 minutes, or is it like a running total? So if I go on for 2 minutes and then go on the next day for 10 minutes, is that carry over, or do I have to be on there for 15 minutes?
It's a 15-minute session is one, 15 minutes is one session. So if you were to go on today for 15 minutes, that would be one. Tomorrow, if you were to go on for 10, that wouldn't even count as a session because you weren't on there for that long. Which means it would be more if you ask me, because that means people are on it a lot and continuously on it. Does that make sense?
Right, and so then I would say that we're probably getting a lot more use than just this out of it.
Yes,
because people go on to read one or two articles. So.
Definitely, yeah.
Trustee McFarland?
I just had two quick questions. I know in the past it's come up that we've had issues or concerns with like faculty or non-student community members accessing the papers and paying for that and stuff like that. So, I mean, has there been any further discussion or problem with that? Has that come up again?
Yeah, I know that's kind of was brought up last year. It's kind of tough to have like a monitor for those.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess if Isaac was still the New York Times as dad took but basically, yeah, like we can talk about that. There's really no way to get around that.
Yeah, and everybody with the CSB SJU domain is who can use an app. So there might be professors or faculty that are using the app, and that could count. Yeah, there's no way for us to really monitor. We can't. If we see a professor take a paper, we can't like, don't take that paper. I mean, we could, I guess, but it'd be really awkward. So yeah, there's not much we discussed it, but there's not much we can do.
And one thing that we can consider for future years too is asking, let's say, the political science departments. I know they have the students read the New York Times or the economics department. They have the students maybe read like Wall Street Journal. Now that it's here, if they really want to make sure that their students read it, and even want like more copies here, they can maybe even pitch it part of the department funds. We didn't look at that this year just because right now with the library funding about 2,000 and the department budget's kind of being a little up in the air on what they can actually fund. We didn't really want to approach that. But in future years too, we want to still try to see if we can narrow this down even more. That's something we can look at as well.
And then just another quick clarification on the number of hits again. So if I went on say for 30 minutes, would that still count as one? Or would that count as
just
two?
one. Okay. Yeah, it's just 15 minutes.
Okay, so it's 15 individual, or sorry, 60,000 individual sessions, 15 minutes or more.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I return my time.
Are there any other questions for our guest today? Seeing none. Thank you both for your hard work and all the job. Moving on to letter G, the K-State Task Force.
Hello everyone, I'm Sarah Berry,
I'm Ethan Madsen.
and we are both your community representatives, and we are also on the K-State Task Force. And the K-State Task Force is usually just made up of students, but this year we've combined so that our meeting encompasses a lot of different people from our own community. So we've met twice, and this group of people has included the deans, Res Life, Gretzky Dining Center,
Joel from the St. Joseph Police.
Yep, life safety, CSB security, and a police officer from, and the K-State task force, and a police officer from St. Joe, as well as our presidents and vice president. So it's been a really great task force, and we've had really productive conversations. They've actually been an hour-and-a-half long meetings each time, and we still have more to discuss, and we're gonna meet at least one more time before K-State this year. So just a little K-State overview. I'm sure a lot of people already know this, but what I didn't know is that K-State was originally a senior exclusive event, and a lot of times you hear people say, well, it should just be seniors. Like, it started off that way, so why isn't it still that way? But that's because participation has expanded to not only include underclassmen who are underage, but it also has started to include people beyond our own student body. So that includes alumni, but also people coming from UMD, coming from NDSU, a bunch of other universities that they're not even students on our campus, and they're coming here to participate in this event. So with it expanding and going beyond our own student body, there's negative impacts. And some of these include behavior at the bus stop, vandalism, garbage and trash, having issues with that. Injuries is probably our number one concern. Underage consumption, arrests, devaluing the CSB SJU degree, and disruption of the St. Joe community, especially in terms of vandalism.
Although K-State has managed to obtain a pretty negative reputation amongst the St. Joseph community and administration, K-State overall has been recognized as an annual tradition amongst St. Ben's and St. John's students here. Students believe it fosters community and a strong connection between each other, whether it be enjoying the weather or enjoying a beverage with one another. K-State is growing so much that even alumni make an initiative of theirs to attend, and they put it on their calendars. I know my brother who graduated last year has told me he's asking me when the date is, and I told him it's April 22nd. But the bottom line here is that K-State is inevitable. Its tradition is very important to the students here, and since we can't do anything about that, the one thing we can do is take steps to make this event as safe as possible.
So in order to do that, our safety is our main concern. So through our meetings, we've learned that this year there'll be 10 officers from the St. Joe Police Department that will be on call. 7 of these officers will already be working overtime on this day. So 70% of people, of our officers, will already be working overtime. And this is huge. So this is why we're asking to have extra policing. And with extra policing, we'll have officers that are always on call. We'll increase the law enforcement presence both on and off campus and on campus. We hope it diminishes underage consumption. We'll have additional bus security so that our own officers on campus aren't being called to other situations, which a police officer can now take part in. And then K-State will hopefully obtain a better and safer perception from our students, the community of St. Joe, and the administration.
So us two, we're representing the K-State Task Force, and we asked for $900 from each Senate, which would cover the cost for 4 additional officers on K-State. And we recognize that this money is going to be coming from the student activity fees, but since it's the student safety that's involved, and we understand that it's a non-sanctioned off-campus activity, but since it's the student safety that's the main concern, we think that that's a just cause to have additional officers on campus that day.
And we feel that if students were safe in the first place and either didn't take part in K-State at all or were smart about their partaking in K-State, we wouldn't be coming to ask you for student activity fees in order to support these students making these decisions. So we hope we really consider you funding this, keeping that in mind. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions for our guest today, Senator JJ?
Thank you so much for presenting today. I just want to clarify something. So are we focusing on just arresting, like more policing, more students being arrested, or focusing on safety? Because maybe I'm just getting confused.
More policing does not equal more arrests. What it does, and when we asked at our K-State Task Force is what will this extra policing do? And we turned to, I forget his name, he's the head of CSB Security, is will extra policing help you here on campus, help students here on campus? And he said absolutely, because more police officers means that our officers here on campus aren't being called to go other places and aren't being strained to go from one place to the next, but that they can focus here on what's happening on campus. That's underage consumption, vandalism, things happening in and around Gretzky, throwing up, that sort of thing. So it does not mean more arrests, it just means less tension being placed on our own campus security and St. John's life safety on each of our campuses.
Senator Ringo?
When you say 4 officers, who are these officers? Are they gonna be additional security or private security or?
They are county sheriffs.
County sheriffs, okay. Thank you.
PR Weekly?
I had a question on just one of your points about the negative sides of K-State and the point of saying that K-State devalues our degrees, and I was just wondering where you're coming from with that, or if that's something that the task force came up with, because I don't necessarily think that one day of necessarily, or clarify if you mean like our degree as in our diploma of like our education. I don't understand what you mean by that.
So with that negative point there, it's a little misleading on paper, but that actually came from the fact that a lot of times the students that come from other schools end up being the ones that get arrested, and the fact that St. Joseph, like the community, notices that students are getting arrested on this day and vandalism is occurring. A lot of the times it's not even St. Ben's or St. John's students that are doing these things, but the fact that the community of St. Joseph has that reflection that it's St. John's and St. Ben's are in charge of this event puts that blame on us, which in turn devalues our degree.
And as this K-State becomes even bigger, and again, as students are coming from other campuses, people are hearing about this. They know about it. K-State is becoming a thing that's not just CSB SJU anymore, and it's becoming associated with our education because of that. So people are knowing, and say, like, I'm sure if it gets out and it becomes, negative enough that you could go to a job interview and someone's like, oh, I've heard of that. Don't you have this K-State event? And that's what we mean by devaluing. But there's another aspect of that.
Vice President Cummings?
Couple questions. If this is passed, have you guys thought about the backlash and how to handle, I guess, student concern with this at all, or is there any plans for how we'll back that?
I can honestly say we haven't come up with anything in terms of the backlash. I'm sure people will automatically think, well, more policing equals more arrests, more minors, more tickets, that sort of thing. And maybe it will, maybe it does include that. But I honestly think it's a great thing, and I hope that students appreciate that we're thinking about their safety on this day.
I think the main thing by having the 4 additional officers is more to increase the presence of law enforcement in the area, which hopefully would diminish people being really outrageous and doing stupid things and jumping off of roofs and just kind of increasing that.
Okay, and I have to apologize, like I've told you guys, I practice during these meetings, so I wish I'd known more, but the 4 officers that would be hired, so they'd be only in St. Joe, or how, I guess how isn't this gonna lead to more arrests, I guess, if they're all gonna be in St. Joe? Or are they gonna be?
They're going to be on both campuses, and it's just, it's just like there's a lot of tension. And everyone on K-State is being called from place to place. Administration, faculty, other staff, like in Gretzky, they're having to respond to all of these issues. And so by allowing 4 other officers, it decreases being pulled from every which way. Yeah, I yield my time to Joe.
I just want to clarify that the 4 Stearns County Sheriff's deputies would not be on either St. Ben's or St. John's campus. They would provide assistance in the city of St. Joseph. And that way our security officers and life safety can really focus on their work here on campus, rather than also dealing with sometimes the assistance that St. Joe PD is asking for. So they'd be additional assistance in town, just like they provide additional assistance at Senior Farewell, which not really here is participating in. But we also, it's a similar sort of model to Senior Farewell.
Okay, and then, so if they're only going to be in St. Joe, who confirmed that the rest, there's not going to be more arrests?
I would say no one confirmed that, but what happened is that when we asked, what will this do for our campus, and we asked the people on our campus, will this positively impact how we handle K-State on this campus, they said absolutely it would. And those are
Senator Belmonte?
Okay, I have a two-part question. So of the 4 additional officers, are any of them gonna work overtime too?
No, they're working 8 hours.
Okay.
I believe it's 1 p.m. to 9 p.m.
And
Is
what
that-
times, until what time are the police officers gonna work for overtime?
We don't know their schedules.
I believe it's overtime in the sense that they wouldn't be policing their entire department on one day. Like only 10 officers work in the police department, and not all 10 of them would work on one day. Only 3 would. So the 7 are working an extra day.
And I also want to indicate, St. Joe Police Department, who are having the additional 7 officers working overtime, they're paying that full cost. So St. Vincent, St. John's aren't helping with that at all, and you're not being asked to fund that. This request is just for the 4 additional Stearns County officers to pay their regularly hourly wage.
And another thing to point out is these officers are not just responding to K-State concerns. There's other things that are happening out in the community that they have to respond to on that day. And that's why it's unfortunate that they have to hire, or have 3 other people come in for our own day.
Thank you for your time.
Senator Fultz?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I had 2 quick questions. Was there any discussion of a response to off-campus students who might feel like they're already paying city taxes as part of their rent for protection for basic things like police, and then having to spend extra student activity dollars on extra security? Has there been any discussion of a response to that?
No, there isn't.
There is not been.
I yield my time to Anna.
Like Dean Terhart just pointed out, the city is already absorbing the cost of paying those 7 extra officers overtime. So in regards to your specific question, I understand that you're looking at it from like a slightly different direction, but like people from the city are already having to chip in like costs for this. So to ask them to continue to chip in more, to me, doesn't make sense, but that's just the facts from the meetings. Was that answering your question?
I guess I'm concerned about just doubling down on something that you already assume is a service you pay for through your rent and through your taxes. You're going to double down on that. It seems like kind of a lot to me. But I guess my second question is, if we do not fund this, are they just going to say to heck with it? Is it going to be, we're going to let people be unsafe at that point?
We're not going to let people be unsafe at any point. This is just a way to kind of,
Increase presence.
yeah. Yeah, I think we'll have to just look for other places for funding if it doesn't come from us. I'm not sure if it'll happen then.
Thank you. I return my time.
Senator Andrews?
Hi, I was just wondering about the head of security. I know there is an EMT squad on our campus. Has the head of security said anything about trying to ensure that the EMT squad is around? I'm looking at that from just the health, like when we do have injuries actually happening. Do you know if the EMT squad is going to be here?
We actually have not contacted the EMT squad. That is actually a very good idea.
Okay.
I yield my time to
Also, the EMT squad is only for St. John's. Anything that happens in the St. John community that goes through both calls. So if anything happens at St. John's, that would be EMT, but they won't be staffed over at St. John's. So it'd be a 911 call, basically.
Okay, so I was just wondering if the head of security would have been willing to kind of have his EMT squad or have the EMT squad dispersed on the CSB campus.
I'm sure that they would.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about what can we as students do on that day. And so we do know that there are student volunteers cleaning up, and I'm sure there would be volunteers from the EMT squad or that will be put on call that day for K-State specifically.
Okay, good. Thank you. I return my time.
Senator Alpers?
Yeah, hi. I just have a question. I'm wondering if you're thinking, if this does go through, are you planning on announcing this to the student body at all? Because when we discussed this in like an executive board conversation earlier today, there was just the thought that if we don't present this in the right way, if we don't say it's about safety first, if we don't do that, because I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I brought it up with people who, my friends, and very mixed reviews. I know it's, I mean, there's people who vote for you, and they're the people you represent, so you have to take that into consideration. And it's unfair because they haven't sat in on 3 hour and a half long meetings and discussed it with all the people who perfectly know what they're talking about and doing that, but try explaining that to the student body, you know what I mean? It's not feasible that way. So I'm just kind of thinking, I know the presidents are planning on crafting a statement, they had mentioned that, but is there something we're thinking about sending out to the student body maybe to get ahead of the 8 ball here? Because this could really blow up in our faces, and especially to those senators who are running for re-election in just a few weeks. That might be a difficult one to explain when they're door knocking. I just think of that in a way. So with that, I return my time.
You won't have to explain that because we have come up with 3 Ps, and it's policy, presence, and publicity. And that's our main 3 focuses for our K-State task force. And publicity is going to be huge. So us as senators on the K-State task force are coming up with a pamphlet, an email, things to sign to put up that explains all of these additional things that we're planning on doing this year in order to combat K-State, in order to make safety our #1 concern on K-State. And that would be one of those things.
Senator JJ.
Going off Senator Thompson's question, so what ways are we promoting safety to the student body? Apart from actually tell them about this policy of increasing in the city that day, what other ways are we promoting actual safety to the students?
Well, I know one of the things that we're planning on doing is going door knocking, especially on, I believe we're going to try and go to the off-campus housing and just explain, look, we're just going to talk about K-State with them, just have a nice conversation with them, and it's just going to be mostly try and make this a 21 plus, or clean up after yourselves, or just be respectful on that day. And if you see people being unsafe, call them out about it. So it's not don't have K-Stay on your property, it's just be smart about having K-Stay here. And so that's one of the things. We also discussed going door knocking to some dorms, but we decided that we're not going to do that because we feel like that only promotes K-Stay further to underclassmen. However, we know that there's RAs that are already going to be talking to their residents about being smart on K-Stay. So there are a lot of initiatives happening on campus already, or that will be happening.
Senator Carey.
So I might have missed this earlier, so I apologize if I did. I'd also like to apologize because unfortunately I'm lacking grace in asking this question, so it's coming off a little more blunt than I'd like. Who's asking for this increase in sheriffs? Is it the task force, or is it the city of St. Joe? How did this get brought up?
I can honestly say it's the K-State task force, and this was my idea on the first meeting.
Okay.
Senator Acton.
So what I'm gathering from what we're attempting to do with this is we're trying to make it so that the people on our campus aren't being pulled in a bunch of different directions. So I guess my question then is, why are we sending $900 off for sheriffs when we could use that $900 per Senate to increase life safety or CSB security forces on that day? Because then if we're truly trying to say, oh, we're not going to be having more arrests, the only one way to do that would be to increase our own forces that don't give out arrests. Instead of that, so
I yield my time to Dean.
All of security and safety are already scheduled that day. There's nobody more to add for the department to cover the campus. We don't have people to do that. They're already fully scheduled for both campuses.
Let me ask a question. The campus security doesn't have jurisdiction in St. Joe, right? So essentially, although we're saying they can't be pulled in different directions, technically there's nothing they would be able to do off campus. Is that accurate?
Jody, they don't have jurisdiction, but they do have an arrangement where if St. Joe PD needs help with something, that they can assist with that off campus. But they don't have arrest powers off campus, other than citizens arrest or stuff
Alright. Jody, if I remember right from the meeting, they discussed that it happens more often than not that security will call for law enforcement help onto campus. That happens more than the other way around. Senator Acton, it's still your time.
I understand what you're saying. I guess I've heard from people who have been working in security that they have run out of their work award and they can't work anymore. And I don't know if that's something that they've been already scheduled for and that's what they were including when they were telling me that, but I've heard that from a couple people who work in security, that they don't have any more hours so they can't be working. This would maybe be one way to do that. So,
I think on.
First off, I just want to thank the two of you for I would say that, let's assume this. If we didn't need to have this brought up, we wouldn't. I would love to have more money in the activity fee if we didn't have to have busing on the weekend with security. But as a result of student behavior, we need to. So there are incidents and things that happen in this world, so over the past, just say, maybe 3 to 5 years, how many more cameras have we installed on campus? Because that's something that happens now. For probably 10 or 15 years now, we've had insecurity on the buses to make sure that people can travel safely, back and forth, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. I would love to not have that. I would be the biggest champion for all of you in this room if we didn't need to do that. Because that means that the co-funding board, that the Joint Events Council, or as many different clubs on campus could get more funding. No one wants to give money to busing on the weekend. But I think we have to. In this case, it's not about more arrests. It's about making sure students, both on campus and off campus, can be as safe as possible. My hope is that if there are additional law enforcement, and if people are walking in town with a case of beer that day, then they think it's like, oh, I better not be carrying that case of beer. Or, oh, I'm going to make a different choice. I also think if we do this, I want to set the expectation. I think we should send in a notice of it. Just like we do on Tommy Johnny. Say, you know what, this is a big weekend. There's additional law enforcement on campus. And we're doing that because we want to make sure that students are safe and respected and handling things in the best way possible. And the most important thing is student safety. If an arrest happens because someone is highly intoxicated and fall in a ditch and we pick them up, I would much rather get a call from a parent or a student the next day saying it's like, I can't believe that I got arrested. Well, I'm glad that we at least helped you out. I'm glad that we at least, got you into a sober spot. I'm glad that we got you to bed that night. So, might an arrest happen? Yes. Is that what the intention is? No. The other thing is, we've asked many other groups on campus, I hope the Senates, the JEC, other clubs, can step up on this. I want additional programming happening that day. Because Case Day does not happen for every single student on campus. Some students are disgusted by it. So it's like, how do we get their voices at the table? What would they want to see happen? And I think, if there's additional funding that could look at both programming, alternatives, I think the door knocking is also great. That the two of us will also be doing work to, target some of these off-campus homes that we think are more likely to be hosting these gatherings. So it's about safety. Are they going to be, anytime that there's more police in an area, there's a likelihood for more arrests, right? There's probably data out there, but that's not what the intent is. The intent is to kind of tamp things down and to keep people safe.
I understand the point. The points you're bringing up. However, I would just like to bring up 2 points based off that. Is that, well, it may not be the intention. I think that will be a consequence of that, and I think that is something that we need to keep in mind. Representing students, much like what Chairman Alper said, the students who vote for us. Secondly, to your other point that not every student participates in K-State, in keeping those voices as well. Those people that are not participating in K-State, I think would be very mad that we are spending their student activity fees on policing when they're not participating in something that's not a student activity. And I think that if we keep that in mind as well. So I return.
And I think that the Senate has already kind of made a decision on this in the past by, since you're funding and securing the buses, you're also funding people who are documenting the issue. So that has already happened, and I think this is an extension of that. So if we didn't have security in the buses, these items would not be documented. But I think that your argument is you've already gone there. So I'll return my comments.
Garrett, please.
I just had a question for our task force, kind of bringing you back to.
We are in question time,
Still in
just so
question
we bring it back to that.
My question for you guys is, if we're looking for strictly safety, not arrests of people on campus, why aren't we hiring extra people who are EMTs or people who know officers? Hire people that focus on safety rather than cracking down and headhunting in sometimes, that's kind of what the St. Joe police have done in the past. So I'm just wondering why we aren't putting our efforts towards people who are strictly going to focus on keeping our students as safe as possible by, say someone falls off a roof and breaks their arm, like what is, an EMT is gonna know exactly what to do, but a police officer might only know how to make a call and wait for an ambulance to arrive. So I'm just wondering if our money can be put in better places to focus on safety versus restricting something that we all know is going to happen anyways. And also kind of when we talked about kind of managing it, I would encourage you guys to work with staff at Buzz, because they work during K-State stuff too, and help people be responsible on K-State. Like not necessarily telling them, no, you can't do it, but making sure they're responsible. So I just wanted to kind of bring those two points up for you guys for your next discussion, maybe to figure out something that goes on with those. So I return the time.
Vice President Lovell.
I just want to thank you both again, whether this passes or not, I think it's an important and needed and fruitful discussion that we're gonna have. And just a suggestion too for, if it does pass, maybe for the task force, or we can help you, or people can help you, kind of explain this to students in a good way. And I know you mentioned, and I think, Club Allocation Sir, you mentioned it too, that we're gonna present this in the best way, but, definitely just making it as clear as possible, I think will be really important if that passes, so thank you.
Oh, these two you?
Hi, I just wanted to really quickly chime in about the discussion of why these officers are coming in the first place. Sarah mentioned that it was a task force idea, which I guess I agree with to a certain extent, but I would say, in my eyes, from attending these task force meetings, I see it as much more of an issue that the St. Joe police has brought to our attention, that they can't handle K-State as it currently stands with their 10 officers, and in order for them to get through the day, they need these additional officers. So I hope that touches on PR Rep Weekly's point a little bit as to why are we bringing in EMTs. This is part of the reason why we bring in sheriffs. And then just a few more comments on the discussion that's going on about right now, if bringing in cops is headhunting or going to lead to more arrests, and whether or not we should be spending activity dollars to do that. Just a few more points from the task force that I want to present. We have heard a lot of feedback from students who don't participate in K-State but don't like K-State because it disrupts their daily Saturday activities. So for the minimal amount that would be coming out of their student activity fee to bring in these additional officers, if it is going to help kind of keep the peace at our campuses on that day, I am inclined to say those students would not see it as a problem, but obviously we can discuss that more if you see differently. And then another big thing that our task force has talked about is kind of a free pass culture on K-State. I would like to reiterate what our two presenters are saying, that by no means are we looking to bring in these sheriffs to up the number of arrests, but more information that the St. Joe police officers have shared with us, they don't have time to arrest every single person on K-State. They are literally just trying to manage the belligerent people on this day, people who are causing a concern to safety. So even if that safety is not falling off the roof and breaking your arm, which sometimes it is, if that safety concern is disrupting the safety of other students, I think that's a place where police officers, it's appropriate for them to get involved. So kind of the free pass culture that we've talked about, is it appropriate for students to be able to think that they get to go out on case day and not have any rules apply to them? No, we've talked extensively that that's not the case. And so if arrests are part of that, then I think that that's not unfair, because the law is still the law on case day. And so obviously this is not discussion time yet. I'm aware that I'm kind of going in that direction, but those are some things that I would encourage you to consider from a task force perspective as we go into debate later.
So just to reiterate, for the remaining speakers listening going forward, just strictly questions to representatives, because I think their feet are getting tired, so they're going to want to sit soon. So we'll move on to Dean Terhart.
Strike.
Senator Poole.
Sure.
Senator Turnham.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's been some change in the way that K-State's gone throughout the years, and therefore, we need this heightened response to, events that concern student safety. I guess I'm just wondering, what evidence is there to support that it's gotten worse? Because as far as I've ever heard, as far as I've ever known, it's always been, kind of a crazy day for the most part. But I guess this is a big request from a police department to a student body without any evidence to is there?
I'm sure that there's a ton of evidence, and if you'd like to look into that more, I'm sure the deans could talk to you about it. We don't know the students. I've never partaken in case day, so I couldn't give you evidence from my experience over the last 3 years. But there is evidence that it's gotten worse, and some of the examples is it's going beyond our CSB SJU community. Other students from other campuses are coming here, not following our rules, getting in trouble. The St. Joe community doesn't know that, so they think it's us that's doing it, but really it's other students from other places. And so that's just one example of how it's gotten worse. But I'm sure there's numerous evidence out there.
Yeah, at our last meeting, Sheriff Joel of the St. Joseph Police Department, that was one of the things he said. A lot of phone calls were called into the sheriff's office saying, how could these Johnnies and Bennies be doing this debauchery? And I really didn't realize that KC was growing as big as it was, and apparently to the administration, they've definitely taken notice to it. And so that's where the evidence is coming from. I know it's not really transparent through our slides, but at the meetings, they definitely address the fact.
Vice President Cummings.
Just before we move into debate, thanks you two for presenting on
You're here.
something
You're here.
this hard, this touchy to talk about. It takes some courage, so thanks. No problem.
Are there any other questions for our guests? Trustee McFarland?
Actually, sorry, I just had 2 quick questions. So I guess the 2 things that I'm looking at this motion in the lens with is, one is it's the safe event, and I think it's huge, and that's the big thing we need to focus on. But the other thing that I'm thinking of that we kind of addressed earlier is the issue of the backlash that this might have for the Senate. And so I guess just for me personally, and maybe hopefully this will help other people, but looking at it from a cost benefit, we know what the cost could be and how people will perceive this, and the fact that we won't necessarily be able to change the way that they perceive it. But do we have any idea as to the actual tangible idea as to the benefit that these 4 extra officers will bring? We can say that they're going to help. We can say that there will be increased the response time. Do we have any? Was any data provided? Was there any? Did they give any hard evidence as to how much easier or how much more it would help to have that many people, or to have more people?
Pun intended, is on a case-by-case basis. So I would say it's just we gotta roll with it, and if you vote for this today, we'll see what the evidence is like, and we can ask them next year. Is this something that we should do again? So I think we just gotta see what happens if you vote for it, and hope that it does have a numerous positive effect on our campus and off campus.
And then the second thing I did want to bring up that we kind of discussed earlier in our exec meeting that was relating to this, and hope maybe the deans can give a better idea about this, but it was the possibility, or I don't know if this was confirmed or not, about having the immediate conduct hearings potentially on case day. Is this something that's been talked about, or is it something that's decided that's going to happen? Because I feel like when that was talked about, that was something that I could also see other more intricate matters happening, arising because of that. And so I guess I just wanted to be more informed if that's something that is happening, or might happen.
Yeah, I think that's a discussion that we can have on another time, like, that's not directly related, obviously the backlash could be, both of your thing that you're just talking about and our funding request could have a backlash, but they're not correlated at all in terms of funding this.
Well, and I get it from that aspect, but I mean, some of the effects that I think that could have would be amplified, could be amplified by this. And so I guess that's just why I wanted to include in the conversation if it was something that would be heard. Because I feel like that's, if we're discussing the backlash or the way that we're going to talk about this to students, I feel like the transparency is going to be as big as possible. And if we say only on one side that we're including, or that we're for this, and that the Senates are sponsoring more police presence, and then at the same time we ignore the fact that there's other changes to how the regular process is going to be, how this would be dealt with if you did get in trouble on that day, I just see that could be like a messy situation for us to get involved in if it's something we have to address.
All the changes that we've discussed in our task force meetings are going to be publicized. So even what you're talking about in terms of immediate conduct and how that's going to go about on K-State, we're going to be open about that. That's something that we really discussed at our meeting, is we don't want there to be a backlash, or we don't want to do something that we know would abrupt our campuses. So everything that we're talking about and that we talked about at our K-State task force meetings will be communicated to the student body. They will know ahead of time.
Senator Monte?
So will these officers be pretty much doing, like, just driving around St. Joe, or will they be like breaking up crowds, which could potentially cause more, people to walk around, public intoxication?
We have not discussed the logistics of what they will be doing. At least I'm not aware that those conversations have taken place.
We've reached the end of our speakers list. Are there any more questions for our guests? Seeing none, thank you both very much. Moving on to letter H, open forum. Are there any guests wishing to address the St. Ben Senate today? Seeing none. Lacey, please feel free to take a donut if there's some back there. Moving on to letter Roman numeral 3, board reports. Letter B, president's report. Without objection, the chair will now pass. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well today. We've got a couple of things on my president's report, some that are joint, some that are separate. First, I'll do the separate. I guess it's kind of joint for elections. As the packets are coming out, for us, they came out today. I'm not sure when the St. John's packets are going out. It's going to be really big this year, as there are so many seniors here on the table, for word of mouth, to encourage your friends to run. Maybe bring it up in your classes. Ask your professors if you can say something at the beginning of class that, hey, elections are happening. Can you please think about running? If you have any questions, ask me, because that peer-to-peer contact is really when people get interested. People don't see an email and go, oh yeah, that's awesome. We know how well those work. It's really that peer-to-peer contact that's going to help our senates continue to be sustainable. So please be doing that. St. Ben Senate is specifically for you all. On the note of elections, we're going to do a little change as far as mandatory events go. Seniors only will be working the elections events, so the tabling and info sessions, and all non-seniors will be working the senior events, so the Benny Ball, the Benny Brunch, and senior farewell, just to kind of alleviate some of those mandatory events. If you have any questions, you can talk to me after this. We will have a cookies and questions event. It's kind of an info session on what it means to be a senator next Tuesday, so if you are interested in helping or working on that event, please contact me. I'll also be sending out a sign up in the next 2 weeks for end of the semester meetings. I know some of you haven't even completed your mid-semester meetings, but those are going to be kind of focused on transition meetings, so focusing on working on your transition notes and how to transition into your new position, your new person into your new position. So that's really important. It gets kind of rough each year. And one note I wanted to make, I said this a few weeks ago to the St. Ben senators, but I also like to say it to the St. John senators. Many of you, before you speak or before you ask a question, will apologize. They'll say, I'm sorry, I just have a quick question, or I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Be confident. Ask your questions. That's what you're here for. That's what you're elected to do. Be confident in what you're saying, and that'll go a long way. And it really makes things more efficient because we have like 50 less I'm sorry's. And lastly, as this is our last joint meeting, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the work you've done this year. This is kind of the beginning of a lot of lasts for us. So I just want to thank you all for your hard work and for your diligent leadership around campus. It hasn't gone unnoticed this year. So with that, I turn my time.
Are there any questions for President Erickson? Seeing none, the chair will now pass on.
I accept. Moving on to letter B, President's report. President Mitchell.
Thank you, President Erickson. So some of my points are kind of overlap and joined as well, and some are just for the SJS. But quickly, thanks to all the St. John Senators that worked rapidly last week. I got a lot of good feedback saying thank you for that event from the organizers. Remember that after this meeting, the St. John Senators will stay back for about 10-15 minutes to vote on an SJS only motion. I sent out an email about that last night, so you should have reviewed those materials already for tonight. Elections are 2 weeks away from Friday, so again, please encourage all of your peers to run. Do this on the bus when you're eating lunch, at the Reef dinner, talk to your friends, and think of those people that are a really good fit for Senate. Send them emails, text messages, but really encourage your friends to run for Senate. With that as well, the e-board will be hosting a series of info sessions starting tomorrow. So in Alpha 303 from 7 to 8 and 8 to 9, we'll just be going over campaign rules, election day, what it means to be a senator, and answer any questions that students may have who want to run for Senate. So tomorrow will be the first of those series. If you attend as a senator, you can count that as one of your MSEs. So keep that in mind as well. And I'll send in a reminder tomorrow. And then in a few days, I'll be reaching out to senior senators about your role during election day and just during that week as well. After this meeting, please sign up with me for your end of semester meeting so we can get those rolling around. If you're running for re-election, don't hesitate to reach out to me to schedule a meeting earlier. You can look on my Outlook and send me requests as well. For the St. John Senate, Sunday, April 30th, please keep this date closed. Sunday, April 30th from 12:30 to 3 p.m. we'll have our transition retreat with the new Senate. So Sunday, April 30th, 12:30 to 3 p.m. Location to be determined, but make sure that's on your calendars. And then again, since this is our last meeting, thank you for all of your hard work, and a special thank you to the St. Ben Senate for all of your collaborative work with us. It's been really great working with you, and I look forward to working with you to the end of the semester. And then lastly, for each senator, in the coming weeks, really just step back and think about your role as senators and think about the year that we just had, especially if you're running for re-election. A lot of times we just come to meetings on Mondays and Wednesdays, but we don't really think about the impact that we're making or enacting on our campuses. So really take some time to stop, think, and reflect about your role as student leaders and your role as senators in this coming week and for the remaining weeks of the semester. That return my time.
Are there any questions for President Mitchell? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Moving on to letter D, Executive Board Report, Trustee Thompson.
Hi everyone, the Executive Board met right before this meeting. We talked about a few other things besides what President Erickson had touched on. So the first one was Benny Day of Service, which Senator Berry will be talking a little bit more about with information to come, which is going to be on April 23rd. And then also just a reminder, the Senate alum event is this Sunday, so I'll be sending out information at the end of this week, just with driving situations. And then also we talked about transition notes and having those ready for our last meeting with President Erickson when we meet with her at the end of the semester. In addition, we talked about tabling for elections starting on Monday 27th. The 27th is when those will begin. And then also we talked about the cookies and questions like President Erickson had mentioned. Treasurer Lax had brought up an event for Senate bonding on it starts on March 30th. It's a theater production called Stop Kiss. And so we could possibly go to that as a group. I yield my time to Treasurer Lax.
Benny's much for a survey coming for me before the end of the week. And I know it's
Is it that
yes.
And then lastly, we just kind of talked about our budget and where we're standing right now. You received that email from Treasurer Lax earlier today, kind of explaining our situation. So we talked about possible options. If we do have money left over at the end of the semester, what we would possibly want to do with that. So with that, I return my time.
Are there any questions for Trustee Thompson? Seeing Seeing none, thank you very much. Moving on to letter E, co-funding board report, club allocation chair Hugh.
Hi everyone, the co-funding board met on Monday and we made 6 allocations. The first to BSA for their African night, and that's happening this weekend. And the amount we allocated them was $2,740 for food and decorations. The next allocation was to Asia Club and PAC for the Masu conference, and we allocated them $1,800 each. That'll be happening in Michigan in early April, and it's a leadership conference. For Asian American students. The third is for the Peace Cities Club. They're going to the Notre Dame conference, and we allocated them $390 for transportation. And then Korea America Culture Club came in for their Running Man event, and we allocated them $390 for that. Mindful Meditation Club came in for their semester-long instructor fee. They have weekly meetings with guided meditations, and so we allocated them $1,400 stipend for their instructor. And then lastly, Majus Ministries came in for their annual Praise in the Pub concert, and we allocated them $5,500 for that.
Are there any questions for club allocation chair Hugh? Seeing none, we will move on to letter F, budget update, treasurer elect.
Okay, I have the St. Ben's specific budget, and then I have a note for the joint senates as well. So St. Ben's senators, our budget is currently at $14,906.64. That's $14,906.64. And then on the joint senate side of things, as you know, we had the Senate Leadership Summit earlier this semester, and we came in a little bit under budget, which is excellent. So each senate will be reabsorbing $545.75. Again, each senate will be reabsorbing $545.75. And St. Ben's Senate, just as a heads up, that is factored into our current budget standing. And then I return my time.
Are there any questions for treasurer elect? Seeing none, we will move on to letter G, budget update, treasurer Lindstrom.
Okay, so we have discretionary budget remaining of $8,776.89. Our total budget remaining, factoring in all the stuff that we have to spend, still like busing and security and newspaper, is $33,137.22. So that.
Are there any questions for treasurer Lindstrom? Trustee McFarland?
Does that number include the 545?
Yes.
Perfect, we're done with that.
Are there any other questions for treasurer Lindstrom? Seeing none, we will move on to letter H, open forum. Are there any senators wishing to address both senates today? Chairman Klein.
I'd be stealing. I would love those here. But the New York Times, if we do choose to fund this tonight, we will then have a sign-up session. Well, no, it doesn't matter because it's still sign up currently. So we will have a sign-up session tomorrow here at CSB Gretzky 120. There's been an Excel sheet that has been made available to both senates. You have at least looked at it once, so I hope that you all are familiar with what we're talking about. It's tomorrow, and the time frame goes from 3:30 to 8:30 with 30-minute time slots for people to sign up. St. Ben's has done a fantastic job of filling up those slots. St. John's has not. So Johnny's, I'm going to send out an email basically now, so check after this meeting that has that link. Sign up, please help out because we're not really carrying our weight on this. So, and that's why I basically say these guys, most pennies already signed up for this. So just check it out tonight. Please help out, and y'all make those numbers look even better. So with that, I return my time.
Vice President Ludlow.
Just another point on that, we have a lot of pizza that was donated by the New York Times, so we'll have 15 pizzas coming throughout that time period. So come ready to eat, make sure you're ready to help students. During your shift, please bring your computer. If you're comfortable with letting students use your computer, we'll have those out. So we'll have the library website up so students can sign up for the app. And when you come for your shift tomorrow, we'll have a little sheet that gives you a lowdown on what you'll want to tell people. But each shift should have people who knows what's going on. So if you have any questions, let anybody on the task force know. But I look forward to seeing everybody. And there's also going to be New York Times goodies, so that's notebooks and pens.
things like that. So, I return my time.
Senator Mears.
All right, so as President Erickson said, more so for the underclassmen bennies, the Benny Ball and brunch, as well as farewell, will be needing staffing. Farewell is for all underclass senators. That is the last Friday, the week of finals week, and so we need Tommy and I, 6 senators from each senate. For St. Ben Senate, that's all of us that aren't seniors, and for the St. John Senate, I don't know your numbers. But we will need 6 senators for both of those to work various shifts throughout that night. And then for the Benny Ball underclass representatives, it is now mandatory, and I have the exact shift breakdown now. I know I have like Chelsea signed up, which is awesome. Otherwise, the rest of you, I'm going to be getting in contact with exactly how those shifts are going to work, and it won't take me more time. So with that, I return my time.
Senator Seabridge.
Hi everyone. So shortly before spring break, I made a Facebook rideshare page for the whole school, and the issue is that I can only add my friends to it. So I'd really appreciate it if you all joined and you all shared and added your friends. I can send everyone the link later this evening. I would greatly appreciate that. I return my time.
Are there any other senators wishing to address Trustee McFarland?
Just similar to the New York Times event, we do have so as you know, hopefully, the Wall Street Journal was donated by alumni. We ended up meeting with them at the end of last semester. We do have a tabling event. The St. John Senators have known for a while, and I think the St. Ben Senators have as well. And similar to what Chairman Klein was saying, we are far behind as Johnnies in signing up for this. I was the only one that directly presented to you guys, so that should be a little shameful. I'll take that personally. We only have one shift at Gretzky that isn't full with at least one senator. Conversely, at Sexton, we only have 2 shifts filled so far with only 2 Johnnies that have bothered to put their name down. So if you are free from 12 to 3 at either Sexton or Gretzky, please feel free to sign up. I'd be more than happy to send out the link again to the Google Doc. But I think this was a really generous gift, especially for the reason that they continued it for more than just 1 year. I'd really hate to show them by not acting that we might not be as grateful as I think we really are as a campus for this. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. But yeah, please sign up.
Kara quickly.
Just, I guess now that we've kind of delegated our required mandatory events to work, I have a message for the seniors. I have booked food and venues for every tabling/recruiting event for elections. So just 2 dates for you. Monday, March 27th is our recruitment day. So tabling, we have special K bars, recruiting people to run for Senate, to get their packets in, to create a little bit of visibility within the Senate to the people on campus and make them want to run. So that is from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'll work with the executive board, send out a Google Doc sign-up sheet. And then on voting day is Friday, April 7th, and we have tabling from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Just kind of all day, we're going to have like laptops for voting and everything like I mentioned before. And a little bit of a change for election speeches. Gretzky Fireside was taken, unfortunately, on the night before elections. So the biggest room I could find was Gretzky 120, a little bit ironic because that's where we have our meetings, but that's where speeches will have to be this year. And those are from 6 to 8 p.m. So just a couple dates and times for you guys to remember. And everybody who's running, you'll see in your election packets, and you'll get more information on that. But yeah, everyone who plans to run, packets went out today, so get them in. Oh, and also Millie and I made a new tab on the website. It might not be published yet, but there's a new tab with our Constitution and our election packets so that people can find them, and they'll be a little bit more accessible than having them back in their email. So if anybody asks to see where to find them, it's on our website. Yield my time to
Just whoever has the question, I'll yield my time. Are speeches going to be mandatory for everyone, not just seniors for that? Okay, just want to confirm. Thank you.
Yeah, with that, I return my time as well.
Senator Roberts.
Okay, now, while I think it's particularly important to the motion tonight, we discussed the advisors addressing the behavioral issues. I realize we literally have a month up until that point, so that while I may personally feel that that's important to the motion tonight, I'd be more than happy to wait, but I think it would be really important at some point, if you guys don't have a concrete plan yet or know for sure what you're going to do, at each of our Senate meetings, would you guys be able to update us sometime along the way if you're not feeling comfortable doing it tonight? Or just so we can like know and be truly on top of all that, because like you said, the senators who are on the task force did an outstanding job and are well prepared, but some of us unfortunately are catching up as well. And I just think that would be valuable information to be aware of. So it doesn't have to be tonight, obviously, like you said, I thought it pertained to the motion, but if other people don't, I'm more than happy to wait just at some point in the next month. That would be
The next meeting of the task force is April 10th.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Chairman Klein?
Yeah, just a suggestion, because I don't know how to do this procedural wise. Would it be best just under new business to move the K-State task force to the bottom just so we get those up first? Because I feel like that might be the most made, so I don't know how to do that during it. I didn't want to like motion the table or anything, but just in terms of like how to structure the rest of this meeting. Can we maybe stick that underneath the New York Times stuff and then just pocket that for the end?
We would if someone was going to lose quorum, I think, but no senators are leaving at any point, and so I think we would just, well,
Well, if we're going to this quorum, then okay. But it seemed like beforehand we were going to have anyone leave, but if people aren't, okay, I get it.
We still have quorum, but if you leave, your vote doesn't count. So,
and I think if there are people leaving, that might be the one that I think people might want to debate the most, and so I appreciate your suggestion, but I think that might be the one we should start on. So, thank you very much. Are there any other senators wishing to address the joint senates today? Seeing that, we will move on to number 4, new business. Now, as we move on into debate, as this meeting's already run pretty long already, I cannot stress the importance of keeping this debate efficient. That does not mean do not speak your mind. It does not mean do not share your opinion. That does mean using the hearers and do not say, I agree with everything Senator Gorman said, and then repeat everything she said, and then say your point. Go straight to your point and make sure to be writing things down. That is so important in debate. All right, so now we move on to letter A. Motion to allocate $1,800 and $900 per Senate for K-State to the K-State Task Force for K-State Task Force initiatives. Senator Berry.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Senator Berry, second by Senator Olson. Senator Berry, first speaking turn.
I forgot that by saying so moved ahead first. I don't have anything to say after being questioned for 45 minutes. I think we're ready to debate this, so let's do it.
The floor is now open for discussion. Senator Medeiros.
So I've had the pleasure of serving on the task force, and one thing I realized is that the St. Joe police officers have incredible respect for the school and student body here at St. Ben St. John's, and they expect the same from us. And they haven't always received that respect on K-State, and they've also had lots of safety problems on K-State, and they have made it very clear that the primary concern is safety. For example, they know when each and every one of the houses was built, and they don't feel that great about everybody on the roof. So that was one of the concerns. They don't want, too many students to be on the roof. They don't want the roof to collapse. And so they're just, they want to be ready for any emergencies, and they really just want to enforce safety precautions. Return my time.
Senator Ringo.
I disagree with this motion. We're going to address a couple different things. Throughout the question time, this was referred to as our day, as the big weekend, and one of the things brought up was trying to give a better perception of this day, and I disagree with all of that. I think that messaging is very important, and that we don't want to associate the university with this day. It's organized by students off campus. It's not sanctioned by the university. It's an alcoholic binge fest, and I don't want to associate our dollars with that. I think, like Dean Connolly brought up, alternative programming on this day is a good thing. I would be greatly in favor of using this $1,800 to buy pizzas and screen a movie at St. John's or something different, but I also stress the messaging should be that K-State is the alternative to those things, that we need to make sure that as a Senate we aren't acknowledging it's a return my time.
Treasurer Lindstrom?
Yeah, I don't think in 3 years I've been in any, I've never liked a motion less than I do now. Particularly because I don't think our money should be going towards extra security if safety is the actual concern. We actually provide safety by having EMT squads or extra ambulances instead of people that just arrest and write tickets. Additionally, the student activity fee is for student activities. What actual activity is paying security guards? None in terms of on-campus activities. CAPE stays exclusively off-campus activity that tends to, obviously come to on-campus because of proximity. But at the same day, by funding this, it would just set terrible precedent for more security guards come in, more funding for Thursday night busing, which is already absurd, more funding for all kinds of security measures that are really just not needed. So I'd like to say strongly opposed, and I hope others are as well. Thank you, Charlie.
Senator Shake? Senator Seabridge?
So I would like to say that I am in favor of funding these extra security forces. And I'd like to start off by touching on the student safety aspect. I think that, so a lot of people have been doubting the student safety, saying that more police officers will cause there to be more arrests. And I think that that is possible, but I think that those risking arrest, first of all, could be causing a danger to themselves if they are drinking to the point where they need to be arrested. I think that we all have a lot of respect for our St. Joe's police officers, and typically they are going to arrest you or give you a minor unless you are really out of line. And so that's my first point. Also, I think that there are a lot of students who are put in danger by those who are drinking that much to risk arrest as well. And so I think that it is our duty as a Senate to care for our students. And so I think that by funding this, we are caring for our students. And as for not recognizing it, I think that that would be a little naive on our part to pretend like it doesn't exist when it so clearly does, and so clearly a campus-wide event. And in addition, we aren't supporting K-Stay in any way by funding extra officers. I think if anything, we are discouraging K-Stay and saying your actions are causing this to be necessary. And I do think that extra security is necessary on this day due to the culture that is created by the events on that day. I return my time.
Trustee McFarland?
I guess as we start getting into this, I just really want to encourage everybody to try to come at this with an open mind. I feel like this is very emotionally charged, and maybe it's rightfully so. People do have very strong opinions. And like I said, I think it's rightfully so. This is a very tough decision, even for me personally. I'm still not decided exactly which way I'm going to go, because on one hand, obviously I don't think anybody is against student safety. I'd really hate for this to be something that if we didn't fund it, that something happens on K-Stay, and we always question ourselves, what if something would have happened, or what if we could have stopped that from happening? But conversely, at the same time, please, like I said, think really critically about this, because personally, I don't know how I would, with the information I have so far, that we've discussed so far, I don't know how I would 100% articulate my position or the Senate's position to somebody that felt negatively affected by this. I mean, we can say this for safety, we can say this about arrest. But if somebody gets arrested or people see it, that's what they're going to see it as. They don't necessarily have the same position or the same, I don't want to say capability, but ability to look at it from the lens that we kind of view this with. And so just, like I said, I know that it's emotional, it's a really tough issue, but please just try to be fair about this. Don't try to be skewed. If you're already staunchly on one side and all you're going to say is not anything that's constructive or that tries to challenge other people in a way that is constructive, I'd just rather that you just kind of keep that to yourself and not contribute to make this more negative.
Senator Wilson?
I just think that whether or not this passes or not, I think publicity and transparency is super important. If we choose to pass this, I think that we really need to move forward and write something up, and maybe not even sent from us, but maybe Office of the Deans, Office of the Presidents, Life Safety, whatnot. I just think that because we all have there's so many negative and positive things about this. I think that having the most transparency and visibility with this, why we did this, is going to be crucial to not have any upsets or riots. And I return my time.
Chairman Klein.
Thank you. So also I have this kind of start with a disclaimer. I am an RA, so I have kind of a different experience that a lot of students just don't necessarily go through in their college lives. But I think we all get this kind of like that political metaphorical third rail that no one just wants to touch because it's really honestly an issue we'd rather just not have to deal with. But with that, I kind of like the statement that says doing what's popular isn't always right, and doing what's right isn't always popular. And with that, I think a lot of times we have this fear. I mean, I'm someone who's running for re-election. I get it. I know it's not going to be the most popular stance to take, but I am for this because I do think ultimately it makes people's lives easier, whether it's the life safety people or campus security people here. They're already pretty maxed out and have a pretty crappy day trying to deal with all this stuff and getting stretched to the limits. So if we can help provide some, backup for them within the city, I think that'd be useful. Secondly, I know people are concerned about who gets arrested and who's at fault. The people who do get arrested are the people who are either minors or they're the ones who are past a certain level where they're kind of breaking the law. It's not like police officers are just going around grabbing people willy-nilly because they can. It's because they're doing something that's outside of the bounds. There's a reason why we had a community relations representative present to us today. Because the people in St. Joe are the ones who also basically have to deal with this every day. A lot of us actually helped with the case they put up last year. And it is a mess. It's kind of sad. It doesn't represent our school in the best way. And they're the ones who kind of have to live with that. We get to move on. And they're kind of left with all the trash. So I'd like you to kind of think about that, like who's the ones who are really going through suffering here and kind of dealing with kind of the results of this. Additionally, when I say whose fault is it then for funding this? So is it the Senate's fault for providing security on the bus for Thursdays or providing security for case day? A lot of this is because of student behavior. It's not that we're just going out of our way and saying, hey, we should maybe have security, let's go do it when there's really no cause or reasons. So if we have issues, we have to kind of be honest and say, you know what, this is a student issue, we need to address this. It'd be awesome if we didn't have this problem, but I think we all know the numbers and point to that it is an issue. And the biggest thing that, as an RA, you always regret is that people get blamed, especially when they say we led to arrest, as being their fault, so that we're the ones who got someone, when really they're the ones doing something that's wrong. For example, if someone throws up in the shower or in the sink and people can't use it, we have to go, as an RA, kind of deal with that situation. And it always bothers me when people say, you're the person who's in the wrong there for trying to stop them. And it's like, a lot of times you're just trying to help make the daily lives of people go on a little bit easier because you want to wash your hands or you want to go use the shower. So I'm just saying, don't allow behavior that's unacceptable become acceptable just because we're afraid of dealing with the backlash. That's just one of the biggest things that I think we have to kind of just look at. Again, I'm running for re-election with the guy who's sitting with me, so obviously it's kind of a little tough for me to kind of say what I want without fearing the repercussions come election time, but sometimes you have to kind of take a little bit of a moral and principle stand and do something for it, okay. But as someone who's speaking for a minority, whether it's smaller than adult students who don't drink here on campus, I was kind of like that view to be represented, because it truly is just a day that we kind of look at the calendar in which that would never happen, because it just makes you kind of feel unwelcome on campus. It makes you feel like you're kind of an outsider, not really part of what's cool in college. So I really just hope that people kind of factor that in. I love that people come with different perspectives. I'm just representing that one. So with that, I return my time.
Chairman Alfred.
Yeah, so I just want to make a couple quick points. Regardless of how this goes, if one Senate votes yes and one Senate votes no, what immediately comes to mind is the Peyton Head initiative and how that caused divisiveness and hurt feelings between the two of us. However this goes, we have to talk, we have to figure this out, we have to come to an understanding, because we can't have hurt feelings or things that kind of show that we're not on the same page, because this is why we do this, so we come together. And even if one side votes yes and the other side votes no, I think it's really important we respect that. And that being said, along with going on the two sides things, it's really important that we interpret this as it's not just black and white, as if you're voting yes because you think this or no because you think it shouldn't happen. It's it shouldn't mean that like if you vote no, it shouldn't mean that everyone assumes that you're participating in K-State and that you're going to be out there drinking a case of beer, you're going to be doing everything. I mean, for an example, I'm still very split on this, but the past 3 years I had the opportunity to play baseball. I was never here on campus those days, so I don't have that background. I don't have anything coming from there besides Snapchat. Let's be honest. So if you're doing that and you vote no, it's not because you're an avid drinker. It's not because you're going to participate in K-State. It's really important to make those distinctions because I can already kind of feel judgment around the table for stuff. And it's really important that we come at that with that open mind. And if we do disagree, if it is something like that, it can't turn into a Peyton Head initiative. That being said, I want to point out 2 other distinct things. One, everyone on the task force who participated in this has been very pro this initiative. 2, that being said, if you put all this time and effort into an idea that you think is going to be a great idea, you're generally going to support it and think of one perspective over the other. So you can take that with a grain of salt that the people who put the time and the effort who haven't been to the meetings, unlike us, I mean, I'm guilty of that, I haven't gone to those, they're the ones who are supporting it. But then again, if you come up with the plan and you've crafted it, you're probably pretty positive it's going to work. And for some people, if you put that time and effort, the people who may not see eye to eye who are voicing their opinions at the table deserve just as much of a right there. So I think no matter what happens, we got to stick together on this, and we can't be judgmental and automatically assume things. So with that, I return my time.
Vice President Cummings?
So yeah, like Chairman Klein was saying, you do have to represent, the people that vote for you and the people that you talk with every day. Me speaking, I've talked to the people that, at least I think that have voted for me, and honestly, all I've gotten is negative and angry feedback.
You're here.
And I also, if we just vote for this, I mean, right now we don't have anything set in stone for a plan of how we are going to combat all of the backlash, because it is inevitable if this is passed. People are going to find out tomorrow. People are going to come up with their own assumptions tomorrow once this is passed, if it's passed. So those are the 2 points I wanted to kind of touch on. Last point, I understand that, the knuckleheads that are doing the crazy stuff do, need to get arrested. I just personally think 4 more officers are just gonna get, the underagers, the kids that just have the seniors that have the open beer cans. That's why I'm against it. Not only for that reason, but all 3 of those. A couple more, but I'll just keep it short. I'll return my time.
Senator Shea?
I want to answer the question about why our student dollars are going towards this. I think our student dollars should go towards this because answering the question about rent and taxes, us as students, we pay for rent and taxes to have a room to sleep in. While we go to school, we don't pay to go out, party, drink, and vandalize or do whatever. That is an extra that we're not paying for, and the school shouldn't pay for it either. As far as arrest goes, as an RA, I've seen people arrested, and I think Life Safety does whatever they can to try not to call actual police officers, get your minor, this and that. So you must really be doing something to get yourself arrested. As Anna said, the law is still the law. It doesn't matter where it is, whether it's on campus or off campus. As far as the initiative to put this money somewhere else to extra staff people on campus, as an RA, working on K-Day is not a part of my contract. As an RA, I don't know how St. John's does it, but I already have my 20 hours for the week. Therefore, I cannot get any more hours, and yet I am already working all day for this event, and I have to be available for this event. Therefore, I'm already working free for this event. So you can't actually put money towards my hours, which I'm not actually getting. As far as saying this is not our day and this shouldn't be associated with the school, and this is solely a student activity, whether or not it's solely a student activity, there are people on this campus who have to work for this school, student activity that are being paid by the school. So whether or not it's student-led, it affects the name of the school because we are a reflection of this school. I would also like to personally say that without harsh feelings, without any personal, without generalizing, I find it very disgusting that perpetually we are not taking accountability for what is being said and done on this campus. I think that I'm strongly in favor of this motion because that is us, even if it's monetary, taking accountability for what our students are doing, whether or not it's a minority of students doing what they are doing. And I return my time.
President Mitchell?
So a lot of people already touched on the points that we're going to bring up, but I know some people are thinking, why are we doing this? Because K-State is going to happen and it's inevitable. But I want people to go in the mindset that we know that K-State's going to happen and we need to do something about it. Especially as a Senate who put drinking culture as one of our goals at the beginning of the year. We really need to think seriously about this day and the things that our students are engaging with. And if it's not this, I really urge every one of you, and I hope that all of you, that we'd find an alternative to it if it's not this. And then as leaders, we will all step up to the plate. If it's working on that day or doing some of the things that our aides do, I hope that all of you will step up on that day because it's what we're here for. Return my time.
Vice President Ludlow?
Every time somebody talks, I change my mind, but right now, you guys, right now this year, it's gonna be my final, I'm in favor of this motion. And it's not that I don't agree that our student activity fee should be going to something that's not a school sanctioned event. I don't agree with a lot of things that this money is going towards. I agree that we should have EMTs instead because it's a medical and safety thing, but I also see the benefit of having police officers instead. But basically, I agree with this right now. I think in the future, this needs to be something that we take on as soon as possible to find funding other places because I genuinely don't believe that our student activity fee should be going towards this. So like I said, I'm in favor for this year because I feel like it's something needed. I want to make sure that our students are safe, and that's the main reason that I'm in favor of this. But in the future, I would like to see this money come from somewhere else. I would
Senator Acton?
There's been a lot of good points brought up. But one thing I would like to say is, first off, is we are here. Yes, re-election is something, but we are essentially here to represent our constituents that voted for us this year.
Here.
And if my constituents that I've talked to about this have said, I don't think that my student activity fees should be going towards this, I feel that I can vote that way just because the people I'm representing, the voices I've heard, have said that regardless of my views on it. Secondly, this is going back way before even debate started, back to Dean Connolly's points about we've already done this before with Thursday night busing. I think that was a mistake. And I don't want to have us be setting a precedent for the future of what we have to spend on K-State. Just like we did not get to vote on Thursday night busing this Senate. So if we do this, we are essentially setting up the Senates after us to have to be doing the same thing and debating the same thing. So it's for those reasons that I have to be against this.
Senator Stanton?
Yeah, so we're talking about transparency a lot, and I personally think the EMT thing's a better idea than cops per se. But one thing I would say is Senator Olson's point of being the statement. I think we should focus on the Good Samaritan law. Like on big campuses, they have if you call the cops, you can't really get in trouble if you're trying to help someone else. That's us still, right? Yeah. So I think we should just really on campus. Yeah, only on campus.
Please don't grant Good Samaritan.
Okay. Well.
When I was 20, I called the cops for someone who needed help, and the cop said, because you called in, you don't get a minor, we know you've been drinking. So, to my knowledge.
That might have been a nice cop.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not.
Oh, that was a lot, I return my time.
You got one.
Well, maybe we can get like the task force to talk to the police and have that kind of sort of agreement along just for K-State maybe per se, because it'll just increase safety and so people aren't afraid to call if someone's really dangerous, like engaged with alcohol poisoning or some sort of that effect. Okay.
Pierre Quigley?
I just want to touch on something that I've been observing this entire time that we've been in here that's made me really sad, is that every time someone talks and you don't agree with it, I see someone shaking their head or rolling their eyes or whispering to the person next to them, and that makes me really sad because we're a team that we were elected by the student body to come together and help the student body, and we're essentially dismissing everything everybody's saying by rolling our eyes and shaking our heads and making dissenting noises, and I think that that's unproductive, and I think that that's sad, and it makes other people seem like their points are being dismissed. So I would encourage you guys to keep an open mind and remember that we're working together here, we're not working against each other, and I think that I just wanted to touch on that. And also, my second point is from a public relations standpoint, being the public relations representative, cheesy, but whatever. I think that in this situation, transparency is something that's really important. And if we're going to put, let's say, underage people that don't care, they're going to do it anyways, we need to remind them that you can't have an open container as you're walking down the street. Or if we're going to expose them to potentially being in more trouble, reminding them what they can or can't do is something that's also important, because we don't want to essentially send people out and not tell them that we're doing this and bait them to get in trouble, because that seems to me punishing people before they even, we're setting people up to be punished, and I don't think that's fair. So reiterating the fact that if you're not 21, you can't drink, reminding them that, being the fact that we are setting them up for something, that reminding them of the rules is only fair. So I think that that will save a lot of backlash on our point, because we can say we warned you, instead of being the bad guys that the Senate gets blamed, like someone gets a minor the next day, like, those senators, those are the people they're the people that got me arrested. Like, setting ourselves up for disaster is the only way to come at this in a way. Personally, from my standpoint, I know some other senators have touched on re-election. I know that that doesn't apply to everybody, and it's easy to say if you're leaving that the dissent on the student body won't affect us, but I think that transparency is really important, and reminding them what they can or can't do, along with what we are setting them up for, is only fair. With that, I return my time.
Manager Tara.
It's coming very much from a dean's perspective, so I will own that part of it. I think part of what I'm hearing is, I ask you or encourage you to step back a little bit from the individual experiences or the individual conversations that you may be having. I think one of the things that came up from the task force conversations is an awareness of how much is actually done by the institution around this event because of the significant impact it has. I think any individual group of people or group of friends who are at a house having fun, not being disruptive, don't necessarily have the sense of the people who are throwing beer bottles into the street, the people who are throwing up in the Gretzky, the other things that are happening here on campus. One of the things that I learned at a recent task force meeting was that the Gretzky dining area has a really hard time with all the drunk people who are coming in, the people who are opening up beers and drinking in the Gretzky, who are incredibly disrespectful to the staff who are trying to ask them, who are not trying to confront drunk people, right? They're there to prepare food and make sure that people have a healthy diet. And the things that they're having to deal with in the Gretzky when they shouldn't have to do that. They plan a meal that day to think about things that won't roll off the plate, because they know that so many drunk people will be coming through, and the less things that roll off the plate means it's easier for them to keep the dining facility clean. And I don't think any individual group of students who's just out having fun and hopefully enjoying a beautiful sunny day are thinking about those things. At the task force meeting, there were several conversations around, it's really not the upper class students. Most upper class students want to hang out with their friends, sit in the backyard, enjoy their fun. And we heard a lot of people talking about it's the underclass students who are causing the problems. They're the ones who are drinking too much. They're the ones who are being disrespectful. We really don't want them at our houses, but we're not really sure what to do. We hear that all year long. And I just invite you to think about many things that people have said here. This isn't going to be like a speed trap setup. This isn't going to be like a DWI sting. The people who are being arrested, because you think about the massive numbers of people who are in town, it's really the most extreme behavior, the most dangerous behavior, either for that person or for other people, that we're really hoping to ramp back a little bit, because the extreme of what is happening on K-State, it's becoming more extreme. It's having a much more negative impact on town. It is impacting the residents, and it is impacting the institution. And a significant amount, I would say, of institutional resources are being spent on this non-sanctioned event. Because it would be, we can't not have RAs who are new. We can't not support the dining staff in the rescue. We can't not staff way more heavily. We can't not have the city respond in an appropriate way. So I ask you to think beyond maybe the individual experience that you have had, because you may not be involved, you may not know people who are involved. And I sense a little bit, and this might be a dangerous thing to say here, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that there's kind of a sense that we want to protect people's ability to do what they want to do that day, and kind of not acknowledge that it's okay to hold people accountable for behavior that is either illegal, and underage drinking conduct as follow-up to K-State. Students believe, some of them believe, because of how large this event has become, that there's actually permission to underage drink that day. That it's not a violation of law to drink on K-State. And I think that's just a really dangerous path to be heading down as an institution for higher education.
How about SJU?
Hi, I just wanted to say a quick note about the PR and transparency that's going on around this event. I've heard a lot of different comments around the table of different things we can and should be doing, and I think that they're great. I know the Good Samaritan law was brought up, or rules about busing conduct or different things like that, and I just wanted to mention really quickly, that's something that the students on the task force have spent a lot of time and energy working on. We're actually planning on doing like promotional poster of like, if you choose to participate in K-State, here are some of the things that you need to know about it. So we've spoken to the people in our task force, so like life safety, CSB security, the St. Joe Police Department, who are all providing us with important information that they think students need to know. I think that's about as transparent as it gets. I also know that we've talked specifically about if these additional law enforcement is funded, that we will be including that as information. I think a lot of the points about EMTs that have been brought up should be included too. So I hope that speaks a little bit to PR Weekly's point. And I would also just like to say, if anyone has any ideas that they think really should be on there, included in messaging to students about this event, please feel free to shoot me an email or talk to me after the meeting. I return my card.
Senator Turner?
Yeah, I think it's definitely important, like everyone's been saying, to be empathetic, kind of the community's need, and really address the fact that, this is a student created problem, and therefore, we can't just ignore it. I definitely think that it's obviously very good to be transparent with students. But with regard to law enforcement, I just think that it's not, it sounds like a lot of these administration and student problems, are coming in the areas of, puking in bathrooms or, people being disruptive in Gretzky. And I just think that doesn't really attack what is the irritation for a lot of people by just having 4 more police cars there. And I think that, if it is just for safety and it's not, to arrest more people, I think that you need to, in a sense, kind of look at the fact that we already have 3, both Saturdays have 3 police officers, and then we have 10 now. That's already a massive increase. So with regard to people second guessing the fact that, oh, there's more police cars here, that's already extremely evident that, something's going on. And that's the point of this disrupting some people's days that are, that are students that don't participate. I guess I just don't necessarily see the relevance, because people are going to do things that disrupt your day, and I don't understand why for a weekend that needs to be put first, unless it is, in the case of some things where it's, institutional resources that are being used more than they are designed to. Then I think that we can do things to address those issues. But the point of $900 being used for police officers, the whole model of police is to protect and serve. And realistically, if you can't, meet the needs of the community, regardless if it be for 1 week, I don't think that suddenly comes on to, student dollars, who most of them are, in my opinion, are not supportive of this, at least from my constituents' point of view. With that, resume time.
Senator Foltz?
Yes, my first question, I'd be happy to yield time in a second for an answer to it, is whenever a student group comes to present to us, typically a question we ask is, what other sources of funding have you looked for in terms of getting additional police presence and additional security? While I understand that as senators, it's our job to help promote student safety, I don't know if that's the best use of student activity dollars. Perhaps it would come from the dean's office or the president's office if we were really concerned about it. My second point is more along the lines of, all right, if we've accepted the fact that K-State is going to happen, if that it's been an annual tradition, it's a thing. I don't understand how having 4 additional officers within St. Joe will help to prevent that feeling on campus. What's going to happen is there's going to be more arrests, more disruptions. Maybe students will be more subtle about their drinking. but I still think that disruption is gonna happen regardless of whether or not we have these additional officers. With that, do either of you?
There has not been discussion about where to find additional funding. However, I think it's important to reiterate the point that Dean Terhart made about that there's already additional funding happening from the city of St. Joseph to fund these officers overtime. So they're already funding officers for overtime, so we thought we could step up and maybe do something since it's our issue and it's our students who are creating the problem.
And Chuck, if I could address this, so institutionally, we're putting our funds into our own officers on campus. So by having additional life safety, additional security, additional staff in the Goretzky that day. So institutionally, there's more dollars going into the internal staff, which is why this request was made for the external staff. So both St. John's and St. Ben's are putting money in the staffing here on campus. And again, I don't, and the hard part is, I don't think our staff wants to work overtime that day. But they are, so, and they don't have a choice because we have to call them in.
That or Timothy?
Senator Acton?
One final point from me is that remember who you're representing. You're not representing the administration, you're representing the students. And as a student, there are some students that would be fine with that, but I think, at least with the students I have talked to, both sides, people who participate, people who don't, they would be disappointed in spending the student activity dollars on a non-school sanctioned event.
Chairman Klein.
I've actually flipped on this issue, but for a different reason. I don't feel like this really goes far enough in solving the issue of K-State. Personally, I think if it's a student problem, it needs student solutions, and I don't think bringing in officers from outside is really going to get at the root of the problem, which is the fact that this is basically acceptable on campus. And again, I get that we speak for students of all kinds. I guess I'm speaking for a smaller minority, but it still needs to be spoken for, so I hope you'll just kind of respect that. But I just think personally, if we do, I know we do Senate K-State cleanup right afterwards. We've done that before, we'll do it again. But I really want us to challenge ourselves. If we're not going to do this, then what will we do? Because I think we all agree that this is an issue. I think if we were at the start of whenever this event began, just ask yourself, would you even want K-State to even be a thing? And if so, would you want it to? Because I think ultimately we all agree that this probably isn't the best representation of our campus, so how can we as students, especially in a position of leadership, really try and change this from the inside? That's why I said, like, I agree. This student funding can probably go to fund a lot of awesome activities and things here on campus that students really need this money for. But I really want to challenge people to kind of step up and take some leadership too on this, because as an RA, I've been doing this all year. I'm sure many of you have with your friends or others, but if we really want to get at this issue, especially, I'm talking to a lot of those people who are juniors, sophomores, and first years around the Senate. How are we going to try and fix this down the road? Because ultimately, that's what we got to try to figure out. So I kind of look at this, I realize that a lot of work put into it, so I feel kind of bad maybe talking about that. So thank you, Ethan and Sarah, and everyone on the committee who has done so much. But I think if we truly want to get at the root of this issue, we got to find some other more people-oriented, student-led initiatives. So that's just kind of why I flipped. Feel free to disagree, but with that, I return my time.
Without objection, the chair will pass. Thank you very much. I just had one comment I wanted to make, not in regards to being in favor or declining this motion, but there were two phrases that I heard that have just been making my blood really boil over here. One of them was, why do anything? Because it's going to happen anyway. And would we say that about a lot of issues that we talk about? Like, I know it's not the same scale, but sometimes like racism, you're just not going to say anything because it's going to happen anyways. We just had weeks of protests and arguments and forums and listening to student concerns, and it's just going to happen anyways. The problem's too big, so you're not going to fix it. That just really disappointed me, and I've heard it many times, and I just had to speak up and say something. That is your job. That is what you are here to do, is to do something about it. So just because it happens doesn't mean you should ignore it. Senator Barry?
I just wanted to touch on something that Senator Turnham said that also made my blood boil. He didn't understand why this would disrupt somebody. Like, oh, like, bah humbug, this disrupts your day. I have left campus the last 3 years because this disrupts my entire weekend. It causes me so much anxiety that I have to leave campus. And I'm already having anxiety about staying here because people are like, no, Sarah, just stay here. Like, we can get you through this. Like, it'll be okay. And passing this student initiative or doing something other or something additional to this that's not this makes me feel better about this day and makes me feel better about staying here on campus. So it does disrupt people's days, and I am one of those students that it affects. I return my time.
President Mitchell? Senator Ferguson?
Yeah, I'm all for safety and, abiding by the law. And I do believe that having extra police officers would create accountability, I suppose, to some extent, not really cause people to not drink. It just, to, monitor your actions. But I just think that if we do fund it, there's an implication that, this is a student activity. I'd be more comfortable, compensating students that are forfeiting their weekend activities to monitor on-campus issues like PRAs who aren't going to be compensated for that time they have to put into monitor all their EMT squad that probably have to get called in. I just wouldn't be comfortable funding an outside source, especially considering it's not an actual student activity.
Senator Turnham?
Yeah, I just really want to apologize. I didn't mean to, phrase it in that way. I guess what I meant to say was that, I don't know, I definitely understand the safety aspect, and, I just think that there's better ways that we can go about addressing the underlying causes of, per se, your anxiety. And I think that the consequences of doing this, although that we, it might make progress in some areas, I just feel that there's going to be some consequences to this that, such as, I hesitate to use the story because it only happened one time, but it was, it was at night, it was outside at the Yellow House, and it was, it was all fine while I was on case day, and there was a girl that was, walking, and she was fine, she had a water bottle, and by any means you could not tell that, she was intoxicated or anything, but a cop on a bike was kind of like riding next to her, and she took like one step off of the curb, so she was in the street in the public place, and the cop just grabbed her and pretty much just like threw her down, handcuffed her, and put her in the back of the thing. And I'm just worried that with 4 more sheriffs who don't necessarily know the St. Joe area of like where you need to be and where you don't need to be, I'm worried that this is going to be viewed as a crackdown. I just think that there's big strides we can take in safety, but I think that had a big impact on me, and I don't know. Again, I just think that this sets a bad precedent for the future. But I do want to thank you guys sincerely for all the work that you put into this. Regardless if it gets passed or not, I think that a lot of things are being done with regard to student transparency and just making sure that people are aware of other events on campus. So I think thanks for everyone too who voiced their opinions. You're better.
Chairman Poole?
I'm particularly for this because it's St. Joseph focused on it. I hear a lot about people, St. Joseph community being affected by St. Vincent St. John's. And I'm thinking, I hear a lot about like, why don't we get ENT instead? I think we should get ENT also, plus the police. I think we should bring in more people for this St. Joseph thing. I'm particularly thinking that I can't help but worry if we don't fund this, if something bad happens and it could have been a police officer there to help somebody. I'm not even someone who supports the police, but in this instance where a lot of people are out of their right mind, I think that we need people there to be protected. A lot of my associates may not agree to this. People brought up that a lot of people won't agree to this. I think a lot of my associates don't agree with a lot of things that it does. We fund people to go for trips for our seniors. I think a lot of my associates would agree that they laid it out on the road that they would have wished that somebody would have protected me. I fell and hit my head and I was so drunk. They might not learn now, maybe they'll learn later. I'm okay with that. That sits well with me. For $900, that sits well in my head. And the backlash, I don't care. I
Here,
don't.
here.
For their safety, for their protection, I don't care. And with that, I'll turn my time.
Treasurer Lax.
I really haven't had much to say. I've been listening a lot, but something that has kind of come up to me is last week at our St. Vincent meeting, we talked about knowing the difference of when to vote for something on principle versus voting for something with the students that we represent in mind. And I think that although K-State isn't technically an official campus sanctioned student activity, it's still literally a student activity that enough students are participating in that the St. Joe community has reached out to us to try and ask for our help in controlling our own students. And I really agree with Chairman Poole, like $900 isn't that big of a deal to me personally. So I encourage you to think about that when you're voting today.
Treasurer Lindstrom.
Yeah, one thing that I just thought about is I'm tired of like people talking about how much it drains St. Ben's and St. John's are on the St. Joe communities. Like it's such a burden that they have to deal with K-State. But look at all the benefits that St. Joe gets from having St. Ben's on their campus. They get fine arts programming every day of the week. They get students that have infused economic dollars into our community at Bad Habit or at Sal's or at Local Blend or at Bella China or Bo Diddley's or Slice or Gary's or Kay's or Holiday or Quick Trip. But basically what I'm trying to say is without these two colleges, this town probably won't exist, and they shouldn't view one day being like such a terrible burden. Yes, it's negative. I'm strongly in favor of campus cleanups and such, but I just don't think that extra policing would do anything long term to help this day.
President Mitchell.
I think moving on in this discussion, I don't think that we should bring up the town of St. Joe as like we don't care about them, because personally, if I lived in St. Joe and someone was trashing my community, I'd be very disappointed. And if the constituents of St. Joe came on the St. John's or St. Ben's campus and did what we do in their community, they'd be very upset too. I'll turn my time.
We reached the end of our speakers list. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Senator Ringo.
I'd like to call for a roll call vote to be recorded in the official minutes.
I'm sorry, hold on one second. Can I ask a clarification? Does that mean writing down who votes yes and who votes no?
Yeah, so I'd like a record of the vote, of the way people vote.
I yield my time to advisors. Is that parliamentary on the St. Ben Senate side? So we use our rules because we're here. That didn't mean to be as aggressive as it sounded.
So, Elizabeth, maybe that piece can be looked up still, but is there anything else?
Is there any further debate or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we will vote separately on this motion. Did I make sure there's another discussion? Did I miss anybody's hand? We will vote separately on this motion. So first it will be for the St. Ben Senate. So make sure you raise your hand high so I can see it. So all those in favor of motion to allocate $900 for K-State Task Force initiatives, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 11-5-0. Chair will now pass.
So executive assistant captain, so can you go to the attendance sheet, and basically I'll call each senator by name, and you put yes or no, and then I'll keep a tally as well. Got it? All right, so we'll move to vote on a motion to allocate $900 for the K-State Task Force initiatives. When I call your name, please signify by saying aye or nay. Vice President Cummings.
Nay.
Chairman Poole.
What were the options not nay? Yes.
Aye or abstention.
Aye.
Senator Turner.
Nay.
Chairman Clark.
Nay.
Senator Stanton.
Nay.
Senator Heinzelman.
Nay.
Bolt,
Nay.
Senator Bernardo,
Nay.
Senator Acton,
Nay.
Chairman Albers,
Aye.
Treasurer Ministro,
Nay.
Trustee McFarland. Motion fails 4-13-0.
I accept. Moving on to letter D, motion to allocate $4,878.54.
He was in here, so it's both of them.
Right there.
Oh, crap. Senator Watercloak.
Nay.
Alright, bring it back in. Motion to allocate $4,878.54, that's $2,439.27 per Senate for the New York Times app. Trustee McFarland.
So moved.
Second. There's been a motion by Trustee McFarland, a second by Senator Olson. Trustee McFarland, your first speaking turn.
I know that might be a little hard to fully put all of our attention into something that's so long and draining, but I really hope you guys just kind of clear the slate and think about this. I think that this has been something for the first couple of years that I was in the Senate. We debated having an app like this. I was really, really happy that this was something we did decide to bring on. I think it's been an overwhelming success. And I know that it seems like there's no money, especially maybe considering those who might be looking at the budget. But I think this is something that's really helpful. It helps proliferate a lot of information. The so-called era of alternative facts and fake news. I just think anytime that we can have something like this where it's reputable sources that are being given to pretty much everybody on campus that wants it and can seek it out, something that we should be backing. So with that, I would recommend.
The floor is now open for discussion. Senator Agnew.
I'm in full support of this. I think that one thing we need to keep in mind is that we do have almost 700 users of the app on our campus. You do have to use the CSB SJU domain on that, so it's not people just outside of the community. It's people on our campus that are using it, and it's being used. It's been used over 60,000 times in the last year for over 15 minutes. The app is especially, which means the app is probably going to use a lot more than that. I know that I wasn't aware that 15 minutes was what was counting, so I read an article on the bus, and that's 5 minutes. So like I'm not getting that count every time. So there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that are using it more than just the 60,000, which I think is already an impressive number. And I echo what Trustee McFarland said about having real news. I would join my time.
We reach the end of our speakers list. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we will move to vote. Seeing Ben Senate first. All those in favor of motion to allocate $2,439.27 for the New York Times app, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 16-0. Objection, the chair will not pass.
John Center, motion to allocate $2,439.27 for the New York Times app. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously 16-0.
I accept. Moving on to letter C, motion to endorse an allocation of funding to the New York Times app for the CSB and SJU Senate of the 2017-2018 academic year. Vice President Ludlow. Second. There's a motion by Vice President Ludlow, a second by Senator Stevens. Vice President Ludlow, your first speaking turn.
So I know this might be tough for some people to make a decision for next year's Senate, but just quite honestly, it's something we have to do. And there's not really another way around that part of it. It's only a little less than $5,000 for a 90% to 100% pickup rate. That means that 71 papers are being used per day. Whether that means that the same people are picking them up every day or if it's different people every day, there's no way for us to really tell. But either way, it's still another way for students to get their news and get correct news in the New York Times. So I'm in full support of this motion. I would turn to
The floor is now open for discussion. President Mitchell.
I just want to thank the newspaper task force for all of the work that they've done in the last 4 years. It's really great to see our numbers rise so much over these 4 years. So great work.
Senator Ringo.
Could you remind us again how much it is for each Senate?
$4,970. $4,970 for Senate. So you're looking at like $2,500 per semester per Senate. It's still. Senator Eichten?
Sorry, I should have asked this during question time. I'll yield my time to whoever has the answer. Is this consistent with what the past year's Senate paid for this year? I yield my time to the Vice President.
Yeah, the dollar amount is roughly the same because the paper amount is less because we had to lower our numbers to keep with our same budget because their numbers and the cost of the paper rose. But yeah, it's roughly about the same for the cost.
Okay, thank you. So I would say I'm in favor of this. It's difficult for me to spend the next Senate's money, but due to timing, I think that it is important that we have this resource available right away when we get back to campus. First years especially, I think we'll figure it out. So we'll use that. And if we don't have it right away, it'd be difficult for them to pick up on that later.
Kara, quickly.
Speaking as a hopeful member of next year's Senate, I am in full favor of this motion. I think that the statistics talk for themselves, that the task force presented to us, and I think that this paper is a huge asset on our campus. And I think that it's a great idea to keep it on campus because it is literally textbook in our job to do things like this. So I'm in full favor of this motion, and I would like to hear any dissent if there is any. With that, I return my time.
Chairman Alpert?
First off, I'd like to say that we did this last year and it worked out quite well this year. And second, from someone who throughout his 4 years here has taken classes that requires him to read the New York Times every day, it's invaluable. It might be a specific demographic of our student body, but we still have a responsibility for those kids. And I know that I appreciated it, especially I need all the help I can get to sound smarter. So I appreciate that.
Senator Trenum?
Yeah, thanks to the third task force. It's awesome we have this. That will be a question. If possible.
You can only do that if that's the first thing you say. Senator Sneakers? All those in favor? We'll do a joint vote on this. This is how State Ben Senate does it. All those in favor of moving to the previous question, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? We'll move to previous question. State Ben Senate first. All those in favor of motion to endorse the allocation of funding to the New York Times for the CSB and SJU Senate of the 2017-2018 academic year, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 16-0-0. Without objection, the chair will pass.
Thank you. St. John Senate, motion to endorse an allocation of the funding of the New York Times to the SJU Senate of the 2017-2018 academic year. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. 16-0.
Alright, moving on to Roman numeral 5 announcements. Letter A, the next meeting of St. Ben Senate is on Wednesday, March 29th at 5 p.m. Moving on to letter B, the next St. John Senate meeting will next meet at 9:20 p.m. on Monday, March. And all Johnnies stay behind. Don't move. And Brother Roy's Pop. Moving on to Roman numeral 6 adjournment. Second. Motion by Vice President Cummings and second by Vice President Ludlow. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?